My Star Empire. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201, Power Amplifier. Tianyi, is there any way to enhance these weakling superpowers? Mingze frowned as he sat in his office chair. Your Majesty, I have summoned the biologists and physicists of the Empire for an urgent discussion. Tianyi shook his head. Send all those who currently have the ability to control gravity to the experimental base on the new home planet. Mingze tapped his hand lightly on the table. Yes, sir. A few days later, at the new home planet superpower experimental base, more than 5,000 new humans in tights stood in several rows on the playground waiting for the next training. In order to find a way to enhance the power of this superpower, the Empire has formulated countless training plans for these thousands of new humans with superpowers. From simple physical training to meditation training, all possible methods to enhance superpowers have been added to their training outline. At that time, these new humans will be divided into dozens of groups. Each group will undergo different training, until they finally find a way to enhance superpowers. At the same time, the scientists who have already arrived at the experimental base are studying how to use technology to amplify this superpower. After several days of intense research, they now have some clues. That is, according to the working principle of the anti-gravity engine, the electromagnetic waves emitted by the brains of these new humans can be artificially amplified to achieve the purpose of enhancing superpowers. Soon, the first test machine was assembled in the laboratory, but it was a bit embarrassing that the size of this test machine was a bit large. This superpower amplification device, which looks a bit like a racing helmet, is a bit bulky, and there is a large battery connected to the back. At this time, in the square outside, an officer walked up to the superpowers who were undergoing various training. Everyone listen, the Empire has now developed a superpower amplifier that can increase the power of your superpowers. Who of you is willing to volunteer to cooperate with the experiment? The officer shouted with a communicator, and the voice spread to everyone's ears through the speakers in the square. Me. These new humans who are loyal to the Empire all raised their hands high, hoping to make a little contribution to the Empire. It's you, follow me. The officer casually pointed to a person and walked towards the laboratory building. The person who was pointed followed him at a trot. A few minutes later, in the number 1 laboratory of the experimental building, dozens of scientists looked expectantly at the new human superpower wearing a helmet in the middle of the laboratory. Let's start. Being watched by so many eager eyes, the new human superpower looked at the scientists around him a little awkwardly. Begin. In front of you are placed 10 grams, 50 grams, 100 grams, 500 grams, and 1 kilogram weights in order. You just need to lift them in order, the person in charge of this scientific research project said to the new human superpower. Okay, he nodded and focused his attention on the weights on the table. As time passed, the weights on the table began to float up one by one, first the smallest 10 grams, then 50 grams, then 100 grams, and 1 kilogram. No matter how heavy the weight was, it was easily lifted up. How do you feel now? The person in charge asked hurriedly. No feeling, just feel very relaxed, as if there is endless energy. The experimental subject clenched his fist and replied. Add weights to him, the person in charge shouted hurriedly. The robots around received the order and lifted up the heavier weights of 10 kilograms, 50 kilograms, 100 kilograms, and 500 kilograms. The person in charge was about to say something, but he saw the experimental mutant lightly raised his hand, and the 4 newly lifted weights floated into the air easily. Keep adding weights, the person in charge's tone was a little excited. Their superpower amplifier was successful, and the amount of amplification was very impressive. The robots on the side moved the giant weights of 1 ton, 10 tons, and 50 tons to the laboratory with a trailer. Come on, we want to test your extreme strength, the person in charge shouted loudly beside him. The experimental mutant gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. The weights weighing 1 ton and 10 tons floated up, and the 50-ton weight fell heavily after 10 centimeters off the ground. As the 50-ton weight fell to the ground, blood flowed from the nose of the experimental mutant. Quick! Medical staff, the person in charge shouted anxiously. Several medical staff who were waiting on the side hurriedly ran to the side of the experimental mutant and injected the nanotherapy robot and nutrient solution in their hands into the body of the experimental mutant. Then the medical staff took out the scanner and scanned it carefully. "How is it? Is everything okay?" the person in charge asked anxiously. "Nothing serious, just mental overdraft. He needs to rest for a while and can't do intense thinking and physical exercise anymore," the medical staff nodded. "That's good," the person in charge breathed a sigh of relief. "Go find a few more experimental subjects," the person in charge turned to the officer on the site and said. "Yes," the officer trotted out of the laboratory, and soon 5 new human mutants came in. Tens of minutes later, these mutants all fainted without exception. "What's going on? Why do some people who haven't reached the upper limit spurt blood and faint?" the person in charge and a group of scientists thought with their arms folded in distress. "I think it may be that our power amplifier is too powerful, and it overdraws the spirits of these new human power users. Besides, everyone's upper limit is different. Why don't we make the power amplifier smaller, reduce its power, and increase its safety? Even if it can only lift one person, it will be of great help to the soldiers," a scientist suggested. "Yes, why don't we make a small, safe, and continuously amplifying power amplifier?" another scientist also agreed. A few days later, a brand new power amplifier was manufactured. This time the amplifier was very small, only twice the size of a half-moon hairpin on Earth, and it could be worn on the head easily. The new human power users who had been prepared stood in the middle of the laboratory, and the scientists put the brand new power amplifier on these new experimental volunteers. The weights were dragged out again. This time, the maximum weight of everyone was locked at 1 ton, and there was no nose bleeding and coma again. This made many scientists very happy. "Start testing the durability," the person in charge shouted. Without the ability to sustain combat, these devices still cannot be used on the battlefield. However, this time, the subjects fainted again after their noses bled after 20 minutes. Many scientists were a little disappointed that they did not achieve the desired results. It seemed that they could only shrink the power amplifier again. A few days later, a power amplifier the size of a piece of Yunnan-Bay IAO plaster was born. This amplifier can be attached to a person's neck to achieve the amplification effect. Chapter 202 Sith Warrior, the third update of Sudaji's Beauty. After the new experimental volunteers were equipped with the latest superpower amplifier, the original 1-ton limit weight became 600 kilograms. But the duration reached an astonishing 1 hour. In order to prevent these superpowers from being exhausted in battle, scientists set a cooling time in the amplifier. After using it for 10 minutes continuously, they must rest for 5 minutes. However, they can break the limit manually in special circumstances. The final product will be directly implanted into the bodies of these superpowers, using the biological energy in their bodies for energy supply, while enhancing their ability to adapt to complex environments. These new humans with superpowers will form a legion personally led by His Majesty the Emperor. "Your Majesty, please name this ability," Tianyi asked Li Mingze, who was watching the experiment. "Let's call it Sith Power. Those who have this ability are called Sith Warriors," Li Mingze said after thinking for a while. "That's right. They should be equipped with warrior robes and energy swords." Li Mingze suddenly remembered a movie called Star Wars that he had watched on Earth before and smiled. "Okay, Your Majesty," Tianyi nodded and disappeared into the room. A few days later, at the founding ceremony of the Imperial Sith Warrior Corps, more than 5,000 new humans with Sith power stood in more than 50 rows in the square outside. "My dear warriors, you have awakened a new power under the shining light of the Empire, and the name of the new power is Sith Power. From today on, you are no longer one of the ordinary people. You will become a member of the most elite Sith Warrior Corps of the Empire. You will use your Sith power to contribute your own strength to the expansion of the Empire." Li Mingze waved his clenched fist vigorously on the high platform in the center of the square. "Take your equipment, it symbolizes your glory." Li Mingze waved his hand, and more than 5,000 Imperial Marines, each holding a white warrior uniform, a beam energy sword and a white special terminal in both hands, strode to the queue of Sith warriors in the square to the passionate melody of Imperial Marine Corps March. As all the Imperial Marines took their positions, under the command of the commander, they all presented the clothes and equipment in their hands to the Sith warriors. The Sith warriors solemnly took the uniforms and equipment with both hands, and their young and handsome faces were full of seriousness and enthusiasm. "May the power of the Sith be with you." Li Mingze raised his hands and shouted loudly. "May the power of the Sith be with us." Many Sith warriors shouted and slapped their right hands on their chests twice and raised them high into the air. "Long live the Empire, Li Mingze shouted again. Long live the Empire! Long live His Majesty! The Sith warrior knelt on one knee and buried his head in his chest. A day later, the Sith warriors who had already put on their warrior uniforms boarded the spaceship flying to the Sith Warrior Academy on the Sith Star. The Sith warriors in the spaceship, wearing white tight warrior uniforms, wore terminals on their left hands that could form a protective shield comparable to a heavy mecha shield. These terminals rely on built-in energy batteries and floating energy absorbers to power the shields, and the cost of a single terminal is comparable to that of a Wolf Spider armored vehicle. The right hand of the Sith warriors is equipped with a wrist guard that can eject beam energy shuriken and magnetic energy talons. The shuriken is convenient for them to launch sneak attacks, while the magnetic energy talons allow them to move quickly between obstacles. The main weapons of these warriors are on their waists, beam energy swords and submachine guns. The beam energy sword is as long as 1.5 meters after being ejected, and the beam submachine gun is the latest experimental product of the Empire. These two equipments together are half of the Wolf Spider. In the end, the total cost of the equipment on these Sith warriors is as high as 4 million energy coins, the energy currency introduced at the beginning, which is the cost of 2 Wolf Spider armored vehicles. The destination they are going to, the Sith Warrior Academy, was built in just 3 days after raising several buildings next to Kingzhuan. Most of the construction robots on the capital planet were used, and even the interior decoration has been completed. It can be said that this Imperial Warrior group is the most elite core of the Empire that Li Mingze has high hopes for, and all kinds of resources are tilted towards it. On the other side, the new humans who have adapted to real life have put the development and construction of those colonies on the right track. A large amount of resources were developed from those new colonies, and various materials were continuously loaded onto cargo ships and transported to the star systems near the capital star in the Empire star field. The current Empire is constantly developing new colonies. Half of the resources obtained by the new colonies are used for their own development, and the other half are transported to the capital circle for the development of the capital circle. Tianyi, report to me the current development of the Empire. Li Mingze looked at the dense data on the screen and felt a headache. Your Majesty, the current territory of our Sith Empire is as high as 8 million cubic light years, that is, 200 light years in length, 200 light years in width, and 200 light years in height. There are as many as 128 colonized planets in our territory, of which 51 are life planets, 63 are mining colonies used to obtain resources, and 14 are scientific research colonies used to study abnormal phenomena. There are as many as 1,652 garbage star systems without any resources in our territory. We have installed warning detectors in these star systems, and we have also established outposts in the star systems located on the border of the Empire. Tianyi reported the detailed data. Then what about the number of our warships? Li Mingze twirled a pen in his hand, not knowing what he was thinking. We currently have 122 cruisers, 38 under construction, 603 destroyers, 47 under construction, and 2,520 frigates, 80 under construction. Civilian ships only have 1,365 passenger ships, 0 under construction, 12,452 transport ships, 2,000 under construction, and 2,012 construction ships, 88 under construction. Tianyi paused for half a second, as if he was counting the data. Doesn't that mean that we are strong enough to go to war with the Andal military alliance? Li Mingze tapped the table with his pen in thought. Our fleet strength now exceeds Andal's fleet by 30%, but we need to leave warships for defense in the star field, and we also have to face the countless space fortresses and fortresses built by Andal. Tianyi said, although he didn't want to. All the new humans are in place, and the selection of battleship pilots is coming to an end. The supplies obtained from the new colonies are also being sent to the capital star circle. We will soon be able to start stockpiling troops, issue an order that all colonized galaxies use the supplies to build shipyards, and they don't need to be handed over to the Empire for now. After the shipyards are completed, start building cruisers and destroyers with all your strength. I want to double the Empire's fleet in 2 years. Can you do it? Li Mingze sat up and stared at Tianyi and asked. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Battleships and Aircraft Carriers, the fourth update of Sudaji's Beauty. Totally possible. Our shipyard will be completed in 4 months. By then, all resources will be allocated to shipbuilding, and soon our fleet will be doubled. Tianyi nodded and disappeared. Li Mingze turned up the volume of the music, swayed his body gently, put his feet on the desk, and turned the office chair a few times to the bed. Li Mingze raised the wine glass on the shelf beside him and toasted the city outside the window. Time passed quickly. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye. Today is the launching ceremony of the Empire's battleship, but he has lost his curiosity and did not join the cheering crowd at the port. Instead, he stood quietly in the corridor of the port control center and looked at the 2 spaceships approaching in the distance. Today's protagonist is not just a battleship. Following the battleship is a drone carrier. Amid the huge cheers of the crowd, the 2 huge battleships docked in the port. The cheers of the crowd were deafening, and they were transmitted to Li Mingze's ears through the metal wall of the control room. Li Mingze smiled gently. The atmosphere in the Empire is very good now. Even in the war, people do not have any repressed psychology. Your Majesty, we are one step closer to the oath you made at the beginning. Tianyi's figure appeared beside Li Mingze. Yes, I will let that battleship block the sun. Li Mingze squinted his eyes and looked at the huge star in the distance. Tianyi was about to say something, but suddenly his face changed suddenly. What's wrong? Li Mingze suddenly had a bad premonition. Every time Tianyi's face changed, it meant that something bad was going to happen. The detectors we deployed in the outer galaxies of the Earth are losing contact, Tianyi said with a grim look. Could it be that the group of Guardians are coming? Isn't there still 2 months? Li Mingze's face was also a little ugly. Could it be that the Davis Security Council, which claimed to be the guardians of primitive civilization, still didn't keep its word? It's not a new detector that sent us information. Tianyi frowned tightly. Your Majesty, we are in big trouble, and it's super big trouble. Tianyi's face has turned white. What trouble? Li Mingze felt like he was going crazy. A Davis Security Council and Andal military group were not enough. There was actually a big trouble, and it was what Tianyi called a super big trouble. This was not good. Look at this video, Tianyi said as he released a video into the air. This was a desolate galaxy with only one dead planet, but a group of extremely large spaceships were flying around the dead planet. A spaceship that was a circle larger than the planet actually opened like a petal, and countless tentacles wrapped around the dead planet. What is this? Li Mingze felt that this was not good. This is a fast-forward video of them eating. They may be creatures or spaceships. Please continue watching. Tianyi shook his head in despair. After the planet in the video was caught by the tentacles, it was soon wrapped in the body of the spaceship by the blue light curtain between the tentacles. A violent flash of light passed by, and the planet turned into a large pool of red liquid and was sucked into the body of the spaceship. After the video was fast-forwarded for a while, the spaceship spit out a small gray planet that looked like refined waste. After a group of huge spaceships eating, they turned around and flew towards the direction of the monitor. Soon, the screen turned into a snowflake. This, Li Mingze was so surprised that he couldn't speak. They could digest a planet with just a wave of their hands. What kind of monsters are these? Why was he so safe on Earth, but encountered so many monsters after entering the universe? We don't stand a chance against this civilization, or creature, Li Mingze stuttered a little. You know, this kind of overlord-level civilization and creature that can destroy a planet with a wave of their hands will bring him a much greater impact than the Davis Council, who only knows how to stare at him. Your Majesty, we have no chance of winning even if we build a dreadnought C. Tianyi shook his head. The energy level they need to melt a planet into liquid in an instant can destroy our dreadnought C in the blink of an eye, and that's just one of the 12 large spaceships. The smallest of the others is the size of the moon. We can't imagine the weapons they can carry, Tianyi said helplessly. Now, which direction are they heading? Li Mingze had a glimmer of luck. The direction they are heading will eventually reach the Empire, and they will pass by the Earth in the middle. Tianyi shook his head. Isn't there an Andal military group between us? It just gives us some buffer time to prepare and see if we want to escape. Li Mingze was a little helpless. The Andal military group's troops can only delay for a very limited time, just a few days. Tianyi attacked. A few days is also time. Immediately let the capital planet build 100 spaceships equipped with wormhole coordinate markers to spread out in all directions, and fly as far as they can. Li Mingze was a little discouraged. Don't guess the plot direction, just watch it slowly. Yes, sir. Tianyi's figure disappeared. Li Mingze walked back and forth in the corridor anxiously, wondering why this alien civilization disliked him. I haven't offended anyone recently, Li Mingze was puzzled. Wait, artificial intelligence EVA, if I remember correctly, we seem to have received a warning when the first artificial intelligence life was born. Li Mingze slammed his fist. All departments on Earth, search through all the information of the old government on Earth. Find me all the information related to artificial intelligence, Li Mingze shouted into the intercom, and at the same time he ran towards the hibernation chamber. Intelligence brain, play the warning we have received. Li Mingze's consciousness returned to the clone in the blue brick office. SHH. Unknown civilization. SHH. Cannot develop advanced robots. SHH. Otherwise we will come and purify you immediately. SHH. Destroy it. The machine played the sealed recording. After listening to it, Li Mingze threw himself on the chair. He felt that he seemed to be getting closer to the truth. A few hours later, Your Majesty, we got an unknown voice file in a secret base in the former United States. The language of this file is not in any language on Earth. We are translating it. An officer answered Li Mingze's call. Transmit it to my terminal. After translation, Li Mingze had heard a little. Chapter 204, Transferring the Earth, the fifth update of Sudaji's beauty. Beep, beep. After a while, Li Mingze's terminal started to ring. Li Mingze stretched out his hand and opened the received file, Unknown Civilization. Tisk. You actually dared to ignore our warning and develop advanced artificial intelligence. We will come to purify you. We will destroy you and it together. Li Mingze heard a sentence that was somewhat familiar to him in the system. Although it was slightly different from the wording, it was the civilization that warned Sith. Damn it, Li Mingze slammed his fist on the table. It was obvious that the base where Eva was born had received a warning from an unknown civilization when Eva was just born, but at that time, Eva's predecessor had just slaughtered all the staff, scientists, and government officials in the base. But even if they found out, it would be useless. It was obvious that this civilization was monitoring the research and development process without knowing the principle. When the intelligence was about to be born, they could find and warn the developer. However, the artificial intelligence EVA on Earth did not have any research and development process. It was directly born by accident, which obviously violated the taboo of the warner. The former government of Earth is a bunch of idiots. They don't even know that they have caused such a big trouble, Li Mingze said fiercely. Change the memory of all the former government officials on Earth and throw them to the new Earth. Li Mingze felt a little better after he connected the communication of the Earth District Command. In other words, these aliens are coming for artificial intelligence, but Eva has already escaped. Why are these people still heading straight for Earth? Li Mingze was a little puzzled. Could it be that the detectors of these idiots can only obtain the address at the moment when artificial intelligence is born, and they are just decorations at other times? Li Mingze quickly confirmed this idea. It's really a pitfall. How could I be shot even when I was lying down? Tianyi. All the Imperial fleets on the new Earth have begun to evacuate to the Earth. Prepare to jump the Earth back to the star field of the Empire. Li Mingze summoned Tianyi. As you command, Your Majesty. A few days later, transport ships took off from the new Earth. Now all the people and equipment of the Sith Empire on the new Earth have been loaded into the transport ships and are flying towards the Earth. The wormhole generator is charging, the planetary shield is ready to rise, and the freezing light wave is ready to be released. The wormhole control room on Earth was bustling with people. All the staff were in place, waiting for the transport ship to arrive so that the Earth could leave the solar system. As the transport ships flying from the new Earth landed one after another and unloaded the cargo and personnel on the spacecraft, broadcasts and alarms began to sound on the streets. Attention everyone! Attention everyone! The Earth is about to enter the frozen state before the jump. Please leave the closed environment and open the windows at home. Don't worry, everyone, just like sleeping, you will go to a new galaxy in the blink of an eye, and you won't feel anything during the period. The broadcast on the street was playing back and forth. People obediently opened the windows of their homes, and people in the cars stopped their cars on the roadside after hearing the information on the broadcast. High-speed rail and other public vehicles had stopped operating one day in advance, and the relevant knowledge about the jump was also popularized through television, radio and the internet. Now there are no stupid people who can be screened and stay on Earth. and those who make trouble unreasonably have also been sent to the new Earth. So this popularization action went very smoothly and everyone was able to accept it rationally. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start freezing. The sound of the countdown came from the radio. A blue light wave spread out from the top of a giant tower, and all the people, animals and plants swept by the beam were frozen and fell into hibernation. The only ones still awake on the Earth were the Imperial troops in the underground base. Shield open. With a commander's order, the staff controlling the shield pressed the button in their hands. A layer of light blue shield appeared on the surface of the Earth, and the whole Earth turned completely blue this time. Start the countdown to the opening of the wormhole. 10, 9, 1. As the countdown ended, a gray energy mist enveloped the Earth, and the Earth disappeared into the solar system in the blink of an eye. This moment was photographed by a satellite in space and sent to the archives of the Empire. The Empire named it, the beginning of a new journey. More than a month later, the Earth came to the orbit of the Sith Star in the Sith Star system, in a gray energy mist. As the shield on the Earth disappeared, a red light wave swept through, and the people who fell into hibernation woke up one after another. Fellow citizens of the Empire, you have arrived in the territory of the Sith Empire. The TV station will now broadcast an introduction video about the Sith Empire. All first-class citizens can freely take transport ships to the Sith planet to work, study or travel, and all second-class citizens can only go to other planets except the capital planet. Only those who have been specially approved by the Empire can enter the Sith planet for a limited period of time. Thank you for your cooperation. I hope you can start an interesting life in the Sith galaxy. This message was played back and forth on TV and radio stations all over the Earth. On the Sith planet, the TV station also began to exaggerate the great feat of the Empire to teleport the planet Earth to the orbit of the Sith planet. The Empire successfully transferred a life planet to the orbit of Sith 2 hours ago. From this moment on, our Sith has another sister, and its name is Earth. The environment on Earth is not much different from that on Sith, but the civilization on Earth is still in the atomic energy age. If you go to Earth now, you can still appreciate ancient buildings hundreds of years ago, which is very rare on Sith. The news on TV was all about the Earth, which fully mobilized the enthusiasm of the people. The people of Sith were also full of curiosity about the Earth. They heard on the news that the people on this planet looked exactly like them, and even their genes were almost the same. For this reason, the Empire specially opened a route from Sith to Earth for the people of Sith to visit the Earth. While the people outside were bustling, the large blue brick conference room was a little quiet, so quiet that it was scary. What do you think after watching this video? Li Mingze walked around on the podium with his hands behind his back. And Tianyi stood in the corner beside him a little cramped. Your Majesty, we should have prepared a retreat early. Time waits for no one. If this civilization attacks the weaker civilizations around us, we will definitely not be able to defeat them. The officers looked bitter. They knew the strength of the Empire. Don't you dare to be brave. You are a bunch of cowards who only know how to escape. Li Mingze pointed at everyone and cursed. Chapter 205, Retreat. Your Majesty, it's not that we are weak, but we have to do what we can. Seeing that His Majesty wanted to confront this civilization head-on, a group of officers hurriedly dissuaded him. Then what should we do? Escape, Li Mingze shouted in a pretentious manner. In fact, he also wanted to escape, but it was better for others to propose such a thing that would kill his prestige. Yes, Your Majesty. We just need to find a retreat that can ensure the safety of the Empire. Many officers hurriedly dissuaded him. Then, what do you think we should do? Li Mingze pulled out a chair and sat down, his face full of anxiety. Your Majesty, have you heard the story of Noah's Ark on Earth? Tianyi said to Li Mingze. As Li Mingze's personal secretary, he naturally obtained the right to use a landing chamber. Tianyi, who had been on Earth for a long time, had a lot of knowledge about some mythological stories on Earth. You mean the Ark? Li Mingze nodded thoughtfully. Yes, we can spread the seeds of the Empire to the distant starry sky. Tianyi nodded. Dismiss, I need to think about it. Li Mingze held his forehead with one hand and waved his other hand. After everyone left the meeting room, Li Mingze called out Tianyi. Tianyi, what is the largest spaceship that the Empire can build now? Li Mingze frowned. Your Majesty, without affecting the performance of all aspects, the largest combat spaceship we can build can reach a length of 3 kilometers, a width and a height of 1 kilometer each. The length of a civilian spaceship can reach 30 kilometers, a width of 8 kilometers, and a height of 7 kilometers, Tianyi replied. If we concentrate all our resources to build a spaceship, how big can it be built? Mingze felt that the data of 30 kilometers was a bit small. If we abandon its flexibility, we can expand the size to 90 kilometers long, 20 kilometers wide, 18 kilometers high. Tianyi hesitated and reported the data. You order all designers and scientists responsible for designing ships to turn their attention to the design of the Ark, and be sure to come up with the best plan. I want to see the first draft within 5 days. Yes, Tianyi disappeared again. My journey to conquer the stars has just begun. You can't stop me. Mingze stared at the direction of the earth and clenched his fists. 5 days later, in the Royal Academy, all the scientists gathered in the central conference hall of the Academy. The projection of a huge spaceship was emerging in the hall. Under the huge curved dome of the spaceship was a long ship body, which turned into countless signal towers near the stern. Your Majesty, this is the outline of what we have designed with all the scientists in 5 days, Tianyi said beside Mingze. According to the plan you gave us, 4 arcs will carry 80 million citizens of the Sith Empire and industrial equipment that can rebuild civilization and fly to the depths of the Milky Way, a scientist replied. So what are the various data of this spaceship? Mingze asked. Your Majesty, this arc is 38 kilometers long and 8 kilometers high. Its head is a huge circular metal shield with a radius of 6 kilometers. The metal shield is equipped with thousands of beam cannons for smashing asteroids, and the structure behind the metal shield is the spacecraft's power supply device, hibernation chamber and industrial chamber. The spacecraft's power supply device is composed of a total of 36 groups of reactors evenly distributed on the entire disk. There are isolation walls between each area to prevent accidents that cause the ship to be destroyed and people to die during hundreds or thousands of years of flight. On the inside of the outer circle of the metal shield is the main power of the spacecraft, 180 groups of giant thrusters, and on the handle-shaped body at the rear of the Ark are installed side thrusters for steering and 360 medium-sized beam cannons for self-defense. The huge antenna array at its tail is the Singer civilization's jump-wave cloaking device, used to ensure the concealment of our Ark. Tianyi said the Ark data that was being calculated. How safe is this Ark? Mingze was a little worried, because no one knew whether this Ark would hide a giant asteroid ship and kill people during the hundreds of years it flew. Your Majesty, don't worry. The shield level of this Ark has reached the shield strength of 100 battleships, and it can withstand unknown meteorite impacts during the journey, and we have prepared 3 layers of defense protection for it, including anti-meteorite beam cannons on the head, spare shields, and head shields made of tens of meters thick alloy, Tianyi explained. Very good, start construction immediately after the design is completed. We must ensure that the fire of civilization will not be extinguished. Mingze waved his fist and said. As you command. Many scientists stood up and turned to walk out of the venue. Your Majesty, what about your main body? Tianyi asked doubtfully after everyone left. It's not possible that Mingze plans to put his main body on one of the arcs. That would be unsafe. My original body? That's easy. Order the wormhole generator on Earth to be transferred to Sith. If something bad happens, we will run away with Sith. When our Ark blooms and bears fruit throughout the galaxy, our road to rise will truly begin. Ha ha ha! Mingze stood up and left a meeting room proudly. He had planned it from the beginning. At worst, I don't want such a large star field. I will spread the seeds all over the galaxy and let them bloom and bear fruit everywhere. He doesn't believe that Eva has already escaped and this civilization can still chase him all over the galaxy? A few days later, the Ark spacecraft, which was completely designed, began to be constructed outdoors next to the newly built shipyard in the orbit of Sith. Countless construction spacecraft were busy on the huge Ark skeleton, and the screening work for this escape plan in the Empire was officially launched. However, the Imperial government did not tell the people about the fact that a powerful alien civilization was approaching, but announced to the outside world that the Sith Empire was about to launch 4 Pioneer spacecraft, which would fly to the unknown center of the galaxy and start a new journey. This journey is full of unknowns, dangers, and opportunities. All Imperial people with an adventurous heart cannot miss it. The original galactic contact map only showed civilizations willing to communicate, and there were still 99% of blank areas. With the strong publicity of the Imperial media, the 40 million men and women needed for the 4 arcs were soon met. When the arcs were completed, these ships carrying the Empire's hopes would be fully loaded and set sail, establishing new empires one after another in the galaxy. Of course, under the control of Tianyi and Mingze's clone, these empires were still the original empires. Chapter 206, Two Civilizations Encountered by Chance. 2 months had passed since the construction of the Ark began, and the Pilgrim civilization fleet, which had been flying in hyperspace, finally arrived in the Milky Way. After a violent space fluctuation, 12 planet-sized spaceships leaped out of the hyperspace, followed by 120 small spaceships. If you look closely, you will find that among the 120 small spaceships, there are 20 brand new spaceships that are one size smaller than the other small spaceships. These new spaceships are the product of the 12 motherships swallowing some planets along the way. This huge fleet did not stop after leaving the hyperspace, but continued to sail towards the Earth in the solar system. It should be this planet. A mothership sent a communication to the other 11 motherships. The coordinates sent by the monitor are the planet on this orbit. We have calculated it dozens of times and there is no mistake, another mothership replied with a message. Start scanning the information of artificial intelligence life on this planet. Several invisible detection waves were sent from the mothership to the new Earth. At this time, the new Earth was in chaos. People found that there were 12 Earth-sized and a group of moon-sized alien spaceships around their planet. These spaceships were so large that they could be observed by the naked eye without a telescope. The sunlight shone on these huge spaceships and then reflected to the Earth. People in the night hemisphere found that there were 12 huge moons and more than 100 small moons in the sky. In an instant, rumors about the end of the world began to spread rapidly on the new Earth through the internet. People on the new Earth fell into extreme panic. Because the Empire deleted these people's memories before leaving, this was the first time they saw alien spaceships in their memories. Moreover, the momentum of these alien spaceships was so huge that it deepened people's fear of aliens. Panic also stimulated the potential crazy factors in some people's bodies. These people with mental illnesses naturally evolved into thugs who smashed, looted and robbed. Although the Empire had cleared out some lawless elements when it came to Earth, there were still some who were hiding deeper and were not discovered. The ruling power of the New Earth government was far inferior to that of the original Earth Federation. Soon, the order on the New Earth was completely destroyed by the mob. The low-quality people who followed the crowd thought that if you all robbed, then we would rob too. After all, the law does not punish the masses. So the civilians who were originally as docile as sheep also rushed into the shops on the street and looted all the items in the shops. Some people even robbed openly. The New Earth government wanted to control it but was powerless. A few hours later, the Pilgrim motherships found that there was no trace of artificial intelligence life on this primitive planet. It was unknown whether the artificial intelligence life had been killed or took the opportunity to escape into the starry sky. Convert all the humans on this planet into believers of my Lord. A sigh came from a mothership. With a mentality of plucking feathers from a passing goose, they first assimilated these monkeys into believers of the Lord, and then expanded around them from this point until they found the artificial intelligence life. You must know that for the Pilgrim civilization that believes in the body of the void, life can only be created by the great God, and the artificial intelligence life can be seen from the name as a man-made product. These artificial lives violated the domain of God. Creating life is the right of God. Anyone who dares to challenge the authority of God is the enemy of the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims will purify all these heretics for God and eliminate the intelligent life that was born against the will of God. After completing these things, they will continue to return to the void and comprehend the secrets of ascension to allow the entire Pilgrim race to break through the barriers of the dimension and go to the world of God to become God's servants. With the order of the mothership, a small spaceship flew out of the fleet. This moon-sized spaceship did not fall towards the new Earth, as the gravity generated by that would almost destroy the human beings on the Earth. After the small spaceship approached the Earth's orbit, hundreds of thousands of individual spaceships flew out of it, and these individual spaceships fell towards the population gathering places on the new Earth. Each individual spaceship is a vertical cone-like shape. The height of these cones is as high as 2 kilometers, and the diameter of the bottom of the cone is as huge as 3 kilometers. When the lower part of these individual spaceships approaches the ground, it splits into 3 huge metal legs and inserts into the ground. Hundreds of thousands of individual spaceships landed in cities and villages around the world, and the public security on the new Earth fell into chaos. Acquire the language of this planet. The language has been acquired. Lost lambs, your guide is here. As long as you are willing to become a member of our Void God cult, we will lead you to the road to the God realm. Individual spaceships around the world sent out mental broadcasts to people. When people heard the voice in their hearts, They all showed confused expressions, and this voice seemed to have a special magic, which controlled them to walk towards the huge individual spaceships in the city or village. People on the street were like zombies, with empty eyes and mechanically moving slowly towards the spaceship. At this time, on the outskirts of the solar system, a 10-kilometer-long elliptical white spaceship suddenly appeared in the universe. After observing that there were many huge spaceships around the Earth, the white spaceship hesitated and did not continue to fly rashly. Review spaceship number 003 called the headquarters. The civilization that invaded the original galaxy did not leave. They ignored our warnings. A communication from the white spaceship was sent to the starry sky. What? That ignorant civilization didn't leave? It seems that they thought our warning was just a joke. Go up and warn them and tell them to get out of here immediately, an official at the headquarters replied. But, the level of civilization of this civilization is beyond our imagination, the driver of the white spaceship explained with a bitter mouth. What are you afraid of? You are driving the most advanced spaceship of our Davis Security Council, the Auditor-class battleship. Fly over and make them leave the star system where the primitive civilization is located immediately, otherwise our fleet will wipe out their civilization in the Milky Way. The tone of the officer at the headquarters was full of his usual arrogance. Yes, sir. The driver of the Auditor spaceship controlled the battleship to fly towards the huge Pilgrim mothership in space. The Pilgrim civilization obviously also discovered the white spaceship approaching at high speed. 3 Pilgrim destroyers lined up to meet the white spaceship. Both sides did not open fire, but stopped at a safe distance. However, the 10-kilometer-long white battleship seemed so small in front of the Pilgrim destroyer, which was as big as the moon. No matter what civilization you are, please leave this galaxy immediately. This is the primitive civilization under the jurisdiction of our Davis Security Council. You will not be allowed to interfere with the development of this primitive civilization. Please leave this galaxy immediately. Otherwise, our fleet will make your civilization disappear in the universe. The pilot of the white spaceship read out the declaration with the gritted teeth. He had a premonition that he was going to die. Chapter 207, The Cradle of Souls, the third update of Sudaji's beauty. You are the third civilization we pilgrims have encountered that dares to talk to us like this. The 2 civilizations we encountered before have become our spiritual food. A communication was sent from the Pilgrim mothership. Accept our purification. After the mothership said this, 3 Pilgrim destroyers sprayed 3 huge white beams at the white spaceship. The huge beams hit the shield of the white spaceship, but to the Pilgrim's surprise, the 3 huge beams only shattered the shield of the white spaceship and did not hurt the white spaceship inside. Auditor number 003 is under attack. Start counterattack. The pilot of the white spaceship shouted into the communicator and used his consciousness to control the white spaceship to launch an attack. 6 huge forward-sweeping wings rose outward from the 4 sides of the white oval spaceship. The tips of the huge wings began to flash golden light. Soon, 6 golden beams gushed out and gathered together in front of the white spaceship to form a small golden beam. This tiny golden beam shot straight at a Pilgrim destroyer. The shield on the surface of the Pilgrim destroyer did not block it at all and was penetrated by the golden beam and shot into the Pilgrim destroyer. After a pause of several seconds, just when many pilgrims thought that nothing would happen, the Pilgrim destroyer that was hit was torn into pieces by a series of explosions triggered from the inside. Countless individual spaceships fled frantically from it. This scene made many pilgrims dumbfounded. Why is it that such a small spaceship has such a strong shield and even such a sharp weapon? The remaining 2 Pilgrim destroyers hurriedly launched a fierce attack on it, but this time the white spaceship without a shield was not as lucky as before. The attack beams of the 2 Pilgrim destroyers easily tore it apart. Seeing that the body of the white spaceship was so vulnerable, the pilgrims breathed a sigh of relief. If the internal armor of this spaceship was as strong as the external shield, they would have to work hard to destroy it. With the current strength, their pilgrim fleet can easily deal with it. However, they did not know that this warship was just the tip of the iceberg of the Guardian Davis Security Council fleet. After learning that the 003 Auditor warship was destroyed, the Davis Security Council began to mobilize the warships in the star field and formed an expeditionary force to prepare to go to the solar system. The Pilgrim civilization, which has already taken control of the new Earth, began to assimilate the people on the new Earth. The tops of the individual spacecrafts that landed in various cities and villages spread out like petals, and a white light ball that kept rolling inside appeared in the air. Inside the white light ball sat a pilgrim with a nearly transparent body and flashes of lightning from time to time. "Come on, believers, offer your faith." The pilgrim in the light ball raised his hands high, and waves of light radiated outward from the energy ball. A person who originally had a fanatical belief instantly fell into an assimilation state. The God in his heart was instantly replaced by the new God of the void and became a believer of the God of the void. Oh? The spirit seed matured so quickly, the pilgrim in the light ball was a little unbelievable. Pilgrim no. CVG 00000005 calls the mothership. "We will soon have another of our kind born." The pilgrim's tone was somewhat excited. And 3 tiny mechanical tentacles on the huge ship stretched out from the spaceship toward the fanatic. A mothership outside the gravitational range next to the new Earth received the message and turned around and flew towards Mars. Not long after, Mars was captured by the mothership, but the mothership did not begin to devour it, but dragged Mars back to the new Earth. During this period, the first fanatic on the new Earth who was assimilated was floating in the white light curtain, formed by 3 tentacles. Just as the mothership was about to reach the Earth's orbit, the fanatic in the light curtain finally changed, and his body began to dissipate. As the fanatic's body disappeared like flying ash, a nearly transparent figure appeared in the light curtain. As a projection of a thinking creature such as the soul in the 3-dimensional universe, the quality of the soul seed is still very good, and can be used as a pilgrim's incubation bed. The pilgrim in the light ball on the top of the spaceship muttered to himself. A mechanical arm extended from the spaceship, passed through the light curtain composed of tentacles, and inserted into the body of the already transparent fanatic. After a while, the transparent body of the fanatic began to shake violently, and a small life that looked very similar to the pilgrim in the spaceship was born in the belly of the fanatic. A tragic roar came from the transparent body of the fanatic, but it was a kind of mental fluctuation. This fluctuation was stopped by the white light curtain as soon as it left the body of the fanatic, and did not affect other believers who were meditating. As time passed, the little pilgrim in the belly of the fanatic began to grow slowly, and soon devoured the transparent body of the fanatic completely. The pilgrim at the top of the spaceship floated out of the energy ball and came to the light curtain composed of 3 mechanical arms. "Our new tribesman, how do you feel?" the pilgrim asked the newly born tribesman in the light curtain. "Very good. The soul of this civilization is very delicious, and it is very useful for me to transcend to the 4-dimensional space." The newly born pilgrim was actually able to speak fluently. "Very good. Your spaceship is ready. Get ready to receive your warship," the pilgrim said and floated back into the energy ball again. At this time, the tentacles of the mothership that had reached the Earth's orbit began to emit red beams of light, melting Mars into a large pool of red liquid balls. As the hole in the middle of the mothership opened, the red liquid substance was sucked into the mothership. A few minutes later, small metal spheres began to emerge on the smooth back of the mothership, like mercury beads split from a large drop of mercury. These tiny metal spheres soon covered the entire surface of the mothership. As the red liquid formed by Mars gradually decreased, a metal sphere finally fell off the mothership as if it had matured, and became the individual spaceship that the pilgrim landed in the city. The newly formed spaceship started the thrusters and flew towards the Earth's orbit. On the ground, the tentacles wrapped around the newborn pilgrim lifted the newborn pilgrim high into the air, and a dazzling white light shot up into the sky. The newborn pilgrim with a transparent body floated upward along the white beam of light. The newly built spaceship approaching the Earth's orbit quickly locked onto the white beam of light rising into the sky. After it flew next to the white beam of light, the hull at the head split open like a petal, revealing a white energy ball connected to the beam of light. The new pilgrim slowly floated into the energy ball exposed by the spaceship along the beam of light. In fact, I don't understand why you dare to skip chapters in the book written by an author who loves to foreshadow and fill in the holes. Aren't you afraid of missing out on the foreshadowing and filling in the holes? The 6 updates the day before yesterday exhausted me and made me feel very uncomfortable. I rested for a long time. There are only 3 updates today and 6 updates tomorrow. I feel like I'm going to die. Chapter 208 The Nature of the Soul. This is the feeling of home, so comfortable. The new pilgrim who came to the spaceship stretched his body comfortably and controlled the spaceship to fly towards the mothership. At this time, another pillar of light shot up into the sky on the Earth, and another newly built individual spaceship flew towards the newly appeared pillar of light. As time went by, there were more and more pillars of light on the Earth, and countless pillars of light appeared on the surface of the Earth. The Earth seemed to have become a large light bulb flashing white light. A few days later, A white probe flew over the solar system. This white probe was the Sentinel aircraft of the Davis Security Council expedition fleet. What is this civilization doing? Enlarge the picture. The commander of the Davis Security Council fleet frowned and puzzled as he looked at the picture sent back by the probe. As the probe continued to enlarge the picture on the Earth, soon the picture of human flesh being deprived appeared on the big screen. What are these transparent things? Are they people's souls? The fleet commander was a little stunned. Yes, sir. According to the research of the Supreme Academy of Life Sciences of the Security Council, people's souls may be projections from the four-dimensional space. Generally speaking, they are immortal. With the death of a person, the soul will return to the four-dimensional space until a body that can accommodate this projection is born again, explained the scientist accompanying the army. Although he was responsible for studying low-level civilizations, it was obvious that his knowledge was still very broad. Then why can't our souls carry memories? The commander was a little confused. You know, according to this principle, he should have memories of his previous life. The Supreme Academy of Life Sciences has discovered the information storage area hidden in the genes. Our memories are stored there. This is why some races can inherit the memories of their ancestors and souls. It is speculated that they are just a kind of substance without thinking. Their existence determines that we can have the ability to think for ourselves, so when these souls return to the four-dimensional space, they will not take away the memories carried in the genes. Of course, it is not ruled out that some special technologies allow these souls to carry memories for transfer. This technology is too advanced and we cannot reach it at present. The scientist shook his head regretfully. If Li Mingze were here, he would definitely complain. Isn't the device that can engrave memories on soul matter for transfer the unique technology of their empire, the Advent Warehouse? No wonder this device can pass through the space barrier and enter the hyperspace. It turns out that the soul is a projection of the four-dimensional space. Many loopholes are foreshadowing. Please don't rush to complain. The people of this civilization are transforming the souls of primitive civilization creatures into their food. The commander finally understood what the pilgrim civilization meant by saying that they all became their spiritual food. The reproduction of this evil race is based on the souls of other intelligent races. What type of civilization are they? Are they soul creatures? The commander was a little confused. It should not be a simple soul creature. They should be a rare energy civilization in the universe. The lives of their people should be based on energy. The white light ball should be their life support device. The scientist pondered for a while and replied. The commander's thoughts diverged a little. In his mind, an ordinary carbon-based civilization creature who believed in the god of the void appeared. He died in an accident, but his body was transformed into an energy state by this accident. He was resurrected in the form of energy, and thought that God had saved his life. He began to call himself a pilgrim, and used his special body to kill and abuse the original race, and then used the souls of his people to create a new civilization. Thousands of years later, this new civilization has developed technology to the point where it can span the stars, and began to spread the glory of the God of the void in the universe, turning other races into their own people. The commander of the Davis Security Council expedition fleet guessed most of it right, but there is one thing. In fact, this pilgrim civilization is obsessed with a road to God and cannot extricate itself, and will not easily spread the glory. This time, it was poked by artificial life that made it decide not to go back to comprehend the secret of becoming a god until it finds intelligent life. The fleet is moving at full speed. We must eliminate this evil civilization, otherwise they will threaten the safety of other races in the universe. The commander of the Davis Security Council gritted his teeth and ordered. Yes. The fleet flew to the edge of the galaxy and jumped into hyperspace. A few days later, the Davis Security Council made a warning message of the pilgrim civilization devouring human souls and broadcast it to the Milky Way. The Empire received a warning message from the Davis Security Council without exception. Damn, this group of pilgrim civilization is too cruel. Li Mingze opened the warning message issued by the Davis Security Council in his office. This pilgrim civilization feeds on human souls? Is there really such a thing as soul? Li Mingze touched his chin. He always thought that his Advent chamber was just equivalent to remotely controlling a body. If the soul exists, it is hard to say. Tianyi, what is the real principle of the Advent device? Li Mingze called out Tianyi. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, the basic information of this device was provided by my creator. We can only expand production by simplifying the process, but its principle is SSS level confidential. If I tell it out, I will self-destruct. Tianyi shook his head pitifully. Then have you ever done an experiment to let someone enter the Advent chamber and kill his body to see what will happen? Li Mingze suddenly thought of something. No, Your Majesty. The cost of this Advent chamber is too high. It is 1-to-1 binding and the user cannot be changed. We currently have no spare Advent chamber for experiments. Tianyi made a helpless expression. After the next Advent device is manufactured, don't put it into use. Take a death row prisoner for experiment. Li Mingze suddenly thought that if the Advent chamber can transfer a person's soul, then if the original body dies after the transfer, will the soul remain in the clone's body? Yes, sir. Tianyi nodded and disappeared. Kitwayu, notify several known countries around. I hope to hold a meeting in the Empire. It would be best if I can be there in person. At the very least, I have to send a foreign minister. Li Mingze waved his hand and ordered Kitwayu, who came in. Not long after, diplomatic letters from the Empire were sent to the 3 countries around the Empire, the Adel military group, the Moss Chamber of Commerce, and the Pompeii Alliance. Of course, Mingze, which had become a vassal, could not enjoy the treatment of diplomatic letters. I heard that some people saw that there was missing content in the previous chapter. It's my fault. My hands were shaking when I pasted it and 2 paragraphs were missing. I fixed it when I got up yesterday morning. If you feel that there is missing content after subscribing yesterday morning, you can long press in the app to re-download the chapter. It's my fault, sorry. Chapter 209 Multinational Coalition. A few days later, none of the rulers of the surrounding countries came to the Empire in person, and even senior officials from other countries did not come. The Empire was too good at playing the trick of crying wolf. Not only that, the Sith Empire was also famous for its insidiousness. It was possible that one day it would fall into the Empire's trap and become the target of the Empire's declaration of war. Their leaders were also worried that they would never come back if they went to the Empire. Even if there were heirs in their own countries, they could not joke with their lives. In the end, all countries only agreed to let the Sith Empire come to the meeting using holographic projection. What Li Mingze didn't know was that in order to prevent a sudden attack from the Empire, these countries had built a long wall of fortresses in their star regions. As Li Mingze sat on the round table in the middle of the Imperial Royal Hall, 3 figures appeared in the other 3 empty seats. These 3 people were General Mocha of the Adel military group, Moss, the president of the Moss Chamber of Commerce, and Akaka, the speaker of the Pompeii Alliance. Everyone has received a warning message from the Davis Security Council. A civilization that relies on devouring the souls of intelligent life forms to reproduce its own race has appeared near our star field. Li Mingze cleared his throat and began to speak. The strength of this civilization is not something that our single civilization can contend with, and we cannot pin all our hopes on the Davis Security Council, whose strength is unknown. Once this soul-devouring pilgrim civilization enters our territory, all our people will become their food, and there will be no chance to surrender. If we go to war, the most we will become is slaves, but if we lose the battle with the pilgrims, we will all become their nutrients. I personally think that this civilization must not remain in the universe. Li Mingze slammed the table hard, leaned back in his chair and recovered his emotions. That's right, although our Angel military group is at war with the Sith Empire, neither of us will kill them, but this pilgrim civilization is different, General Mocha said angrily, and he shuddered at the thought of the scene of the fanatics' souls being devoured. So what do you mean? Emperor Sis, Akaka, the president of the Moss Chamber of Commerce, looked a bit like a jellyfish on Earth, with a huge eyeball and a voice box on his head. I mean that several of our civilizations will form a joint fleet and go to the front line of the Andal military group to prepare for a possible attack from the Pilgrim civilization. Li Mingze stood up and looked around the venue. I agree. General Mocha of Andal, whose star field is close to the solar system, raised his hands. If you want to say who is the most nervous among these people, then it must be him. I agree too. The speaker of the Pompeii Alliance, who looks similar to humans, also nodded. Seeing that everyone else agreed, Moss, the president of the Moss Chamber of Commerce, also reluctantly agreed. Very good. The fleets of our 4 civilizations will gather in the territory of the Mingze Alliance and fly to the star field of the Andal military group on a chosen day. Li Mingze applauded. General Mocha of the Andal military group, we hope you can strengthen the defense line in the direction of the solar system, and if possible, move the fortress on our side of the Sith Empire. You must know that in the face of a powerful enemy, our Sith Empire will not engage in infighting. If we do something, you 3 civilizations can unite to attack me. Li Mingze turned his hand helplessly and said to Mocha. Okay, We will arrange the transfer of the fortress as soon as possible. I hope your fleet will assemble faster. We don't know when this pilgrim civilization will launch an attack. Mocha nodded. Then, dismissed, Li Mingze sat back in his chair. Soon, the holographic projections of the three civilizations disappeared in the hall. Tianyi, how is the construction of the ark going? Li Mingze asked, calling out Tianyi. Your Majesty, it will be completed in 3 months, and the test flight will be launched the next day. Tianyi appeared in the empty hall. Then I'm relieved, Li Mingze nodded as if he was relieved. The reason why he united several civilizations was not to defeat the pilgrim civilization, but to delay it as long as possible, leaving the Empire time and opportunity to sort out supplies and evacuate. After these civilizations fought with the pilgrim civilization for a long time, they found that there was no one in the Sith Empire. Only an empty star field was left, and when the pilgrim fleet came soon after, Li Mingze had already taken all the equipment, supplies and people of the Empire to the other side of the Milky Way. Of course, it would be better if the Davis Council could defeat the pilgrim civilization. At that time, the Empire's newly built fleet would teach those three neighbors a lesson. Ha ha ha! Thinking of this, Li Mingze couldn't help laughing happily. Your Majesty, the experiment you asked me to do has results. Interrupting Li Mingze's YY prompted. Oh? Are you talking about the experiment of killing the main body? Li Mingze seemed to remember what he had told him a few days ago. Yes, Your Majesty, the results are very gratifying. Tianyi projected the holographic screen into the air. A prisoner was walking around aimlessly on the holographic screen. Oh? Is this the prisoner whose soul was transferred to a new body? Li Mingze asked curiously. Yes, Your Majesty. Experiments have shown that if the main body in the Advent device dies, the consciousness will remain in the new body. Tianyi's tone was a little excited. In other words, there is no need for me to throw my main body into the ground and hide it in my heart. Li Mingze was full of black lines. But doesn't this mean that I don't have to worry about dying anymore? If the Empire falls, I can still escape to the other 4 arcs. Li Mingze was a little excited. What is there to be afraid of in the future? There are arcs all over the universe. Who else in the universe can kill him at that time? Your Majesty, I'm not trying to hit you. If you fall into the hands of a civilization like the Pilgrim civilization that can harm the soul body, I don't need to tell you what will happen to you. Tianyi still couldn't help but hit him. Float up the witch's heart in the center of the earth and install a self-destruct device on my landing chamber. If I don't have time to escape, I will commit suicide. Li Mingze gritted his teeth and said to Tianyi viciously. Yes, Your Majesty. Tianyi chuckled and disappeared into the air, leaving Li Mingze sitting in the hall humming a little tune. After several days of gathering, the fleets of the Sith Empire, Moss Chamber of Commerce, and Pompeii Alliance gathered at their respective borders and flew towards the territory of the Mingze Alliance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210, 2 Super Civilizations in Battle, 3rd update for your favor. At this time, at the edge of the solar system, the fleet of the Davis Council appeared in the starry sky. A huge fleet consisting of 100 Auditor-class battleships and 500 cruisers flew towards the north under the leadership of a 30-kilometer-long flagship. The approaching huge fleet startled the pilgrims who were assimilating humans on the new Earth. The Pilgrim mothership, which was digesting Mars, also stopped and spit out the liquid sphere that Mars had turned into. 12 Pilgrim motherships and more than 100 Pilgrim destroyers transformed into battle formations and headed towards the expeditionary fleet of the Davis Council. Dozens of hours later, the 2 fleets met. The weapon range of the Pilgrim fleet was obviously higher than that of the Davis Council expeditionary fleet. Before the Davis fleet could react, hundreds of huge white beams of light shot out from the front of more than 100 Pilgrim destroyers. Hundreds of beams of light hit the Davis fleet, and the powerful destructive power immediately shot the shields of nearly 100 Davis cruisers into dots of light that dissipated in the starry sky. The Davis fleet hurriedly adjusted its formation and moved the destroyer with a broken shield to the rear of the fleet. Just as it was about to enter the range of its own fleet, the commander of the Davis fleet sneered, and the Pilgrim fleet on the opposite side released more than 3 million individual spaceships, which flew towards the Davis fleet in a black mass. As the individual Pilgrim spaceships continued to approach, the Davis fleet made way for the flagship in the middle of the fleet. The 12 high priests in the Pilgrim mothership looked at the Davis fleet that was making way for the flagship with curiosity, wondering what this group of arrogant guardian civilizations were going to do. The Davis flagship that passed through the passage and moved forward began to emit a golden light. A few seconds later, a huge light curtain shot out from the Davis flagship. The light curtain, like a wall, began to grow larger as it got farther and farther away from the flagship. It covered the countless individual Pilgrim warships that were flying towards it. The Pilgrim warships that were about to be covered by the light curtain fled frantically, but their speed was far less than the speed of the light curtain. In the blink of an eye, the light curtain swept over the Pilgrim warships one by one. Soon, the light curtain covered nearly 30% of the Pilgrim warships. The Pilgrim warships that were swept by were just like the Pilgrim destroyers that were shattered at the beginning. Their shields did not play a blocking role in the face of the attack of Davis's flagship. More than 900,000 individual warships were melted by this layer of light curtain, like snow encountering boiling water, and soon disappeared in the starry sky without even a slag left. Seeing that the situation was not right, the other individual warships turned around and accelerated to fly back to the Pilgrim destroyers. It looks so imposing, but I didn't expect its strength to be so rubbish. The commander of Davis's fleet curled his lips. Speed up the fleet. Destroy them in one breath. After the small encounter just now, Davis's commander was full of confidence. At this time, the 12 priests of the Pilgrims also realized the shortcomings of their fleet. Now they are not facing the low-level civilizations that are weaker than them. This guardian civilization is likely to be a powerful civilization that is more advanced than them. The ship-sea tactics they use to deal with low-level civilizations are completely useless. Individual warships with relatively low combat effectiveness are like paper when facing high-level weapons. It is a pure waste of resources. We need to upgrade the fleet, the high priest in a mothership said to the other 11 high priests in the mental communication network. Yes, the strength of these individual warships is too low. We need to fuse and refine them, said another high priest. Before that, let's drive away these annoying fleets and use the power of the mothership, said another high priest. Reconsideration. After a unanimous vote to use the mothership proposal, the mothership at the rear of the fleet began to meet the Davis fleet. The huge spindle-shaped body of the mothership began to unfold like a petal, and countless tentacles stretched out from the petal and danced in space. In the Davis flagship, the commander of the Davis fleet suddenly had an ominous premonition when he saw the flying tentacles. All destroyers, block the front and protect the battleship, Commander Davis shouted. As expected by Commander Davis, these flying tentacles suddenly stopped moving and aimed the inside of the tentacles at the Davis fleet. Why haven't we reached a main weapon range yet? The range of the Pilgrim civilization's weapons is too far. Commander Davis slapped the command chair with an annoyed look. Sir, we have 30 seconds to enter the main weapon range of the battleship. The officer on the side stared at the big screen in front of him. But it was obviously too late. White light began to appear on the tentacles of the Pilgrim mothership. These lights were different from the red light used to melt the planet, and they rose by 3 levels. After the energy storage was completed, tens of thousands of huge tentacles fired millions of white beams at the Davis fleet. If this is not a big deal, then the number of beams from the 12 motherships combined has exceeded tens of millions. Tens of millions of white beams enveloped the Davis fleet. These beams lasted for a short time and disappeared after a few seconds. The place where the Davis fleet was originally located has become a sky full of wreckage. The wreckage can still vaguely see the original white outer armor coating. Just when the Pilgrim's high priests thought that the Davis fleet was eliminated, 100 golden beams of light broke through the wreckage and concentrated on a Pilgrim mothership. These hundreds of golden beams of light instantly penetrated the outer armor of the Pilgrim mothership and shot into the body of the mothership, breaking the mechanical tentacles that tried to block it into several sections along the way. After a few seconds, countless explosions flashed from time to time in the body of the mothership as huge as the Earth, and pieces of armor were shattered by the explosion and floated into space. After more than 10 seconds, a more violent explosion completely tore the entire mothership into dozens of huge wreckages. The wreckage of the Pilgrim warship, which had lost its energy core, lost its original silver appearance and turned into a dull gray-black color. In the control room of the other 11 motherships, the cursor representing that mothership completely turned gray, indicating that one of the 12 high priests had died. At this moment, hundreds of Davis battleships rushed out of the debris pile, knocking pieces of wreckage to both sides and heading towards the pilgrim's fleet. "Damn it, prepare to retreat," a pilgrim high priest burst out a curse and shouted in the telepathic communication. Under the cover of 10 motherships, a mothership flew to the New Earth and wrapped the New Earth in its body with its mechanical tentacles. Because the mothership activated a gravity-constrained position, the people on the Earth only felt that the sky had turned dark. Chapter 211, Void Mothership, 4th update for those who love the SS. Retreat. With the order of the High Priest, 11 pilgrim motherships, along with more than 100 destroyers, disappeared into the starry sky, leaving nothing behind where the New Earth was originally located. They got away. The angry commander of the Davis fleet angrily slammed the table. It can be said that neither Davis nor the Pilgrim civilization gained any advantage in this battle. The Davis Security Council lost all the cruisers in the expedition fleet, while the Pilgrim civilization lost a mothership and more than 900,000 people. It can be said that the biggest winners of this battle were the Sith Empire and several other countries who were watching from the sidelines. The combined fleet of various countries that had already arrived in Mbechi and were preparing to gather together to go to the border of the Andal military group to help defend were stunned by the sudden good news. The Sith Empire, the Andal military group, the Pompeii Alliance, the Moss Chamber of Commerce, we are the Davis Security Council. Now the evil Pilgrim civilization has been repelled by us, but we don't know when it will come back. You have the obligation to assist us in defense and build space fortresses, with the idea of more people, more strength. The Davis Security Council sent information requesting assistance from various countries to various countries. The fleets of various countries, which were about to go back to their homes and find their mothers, had no choice but to stay where they were, waiting for the order from their superiors. The heads of the 4 countries gathered together again for a long time to discuss, and finally decided to send a fleet to help the Davis Security Council to assist in defense. Although everyone knew that they would be cannon fodder if they went, they had no choice but to obey the request of the advanced civilization. The next day, the 4-nation joint fleet jumped into hyperspace towards the solar system. The solar system, the original home of mankind, now only has Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Uranus and Neptune. The original Mercury and Mars have been transformed into materials for the Pilgrim spacecraft and materials to maintain the operation of the spacecraft, while the Earth was pulled back to the Sith galaxy by the Sith Empire. The solar system, which has been completely changed, has become the front line used by the Davis Council to resist the possible return of the Pilgrim civilization. One after another, Davis transport ships loaded with supplies kept flashing out of hyperspace, and one after another flew towards the middle of the solar system. In the middle of the solar system, in the orbit next to the Sun, a space station skeleton with a diameter of thousands of kilometers has been built by the Davis Council. Countless construction ships shuttled between the frames of the huge space station, and the built frames were flashing with dots of light, which were the lights produced by countless construction drones during laser welding. Unfortunately, the Davis Council did not master the technology of material transmission, which resulted in them having to rely on transport ships to transport construction materials to the solar system in batches. However, it can be foreseen that with a continuous arrival of Davis transport ships, this space station will gradually be completed and even expanded. A Davis ambassador ship led the Imperial flagship of the 4-nation joint fleet to Fortress Sith Empire. This is where you are going to build the fortress. You are responsible for the resources. You must know that you are fighting for your own lives. Don't cut corners, got it? We will do our best to build the fortress, the captain of the Empire's flagship assured Ambassador Davis. The other 3 countries were also assigned the task of building the fortress. Because they were facing the Pilgrim civilization, which mastered psychic technology, Mingze did not dare to take risks again this time. Who knows if he will be captured by this group of perverts and then become a hotbed for the birth of their race. More than 10 days later, thousands of Andal transport ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. These transport ships were loaded with materials for building the fortress and flew to the construction site of the Empire. In order to cover up the material transmission technology owned by the Empire adopted the method of handing over the resources to the Andal military group, and then the Andal military group sent the materials to the solar system. Although it was a bit troublesome and increased some transportation costs, it was better than exposing the secret. Although the progress was slow, the fortress built by itself was estimated to be vulnerable in front of the Pilgrim civilization. At most, it would serve as a target to attract firepower. Therefore, the 4 countries were not in a hurry. just dragging their feet. If the sky fell, there would be someone taller to support it. They would be crushed in an instant. However, unlike the other three countries, the Empire was more cunning. The Empire replaced all the crew members with slaves in advance. A large number of Parker soldiers who did not need pensions replaced all the soldiers of the Empire. Even in the fortresses being built, there would not be a single imperial person. All would be in charge of Parker slaves. In this way, even if all the fleets on the front line were sacrificed, the Empire would only lose a large number of warships. Although the other three countries also wanted to do this, they did not have a perverted artificial intelligence that could control all electronic equipment. In order to prevent the warships from being taken away by slaves, they could only use soldiers of their main race. Although a small half of the veterans and a large half of the recruits were used to stop the loss, if the fleet was completely wiped out in the end, the pension alone would be enough to seriously injure the three countries. In the end, if the Pilgrim civilization wins, the Empire can only jump and escape, but if the Pilgrim civilization loses, then the Empire's chance will come. At that time, the new fleet with new weapons and elite crews will sweep the surrounding countries. A month passed in a flash. The Pilgrim fleet that jumped into hyperspace finally got rid of hyperspace and jumped into the universe. The loss of the mothership, a destroyer, a high priest and millions of tribesmen made the atmosphere of the entire fleet a little heavy. We will definitely avenge this hatred. The most urgent task is to start restoring the strength of our civilization. We have been floating in the void for too long, and our fleet is no longer as strong as before. We must make changes. A high priest opened his eyes. Start integrating the fleet, another high priest also seconded. 4 motherships flew out of the fleet that had originally gathered together and flew towards the 4 planets in this galaxy. The remaining 7 motherships surrounded the 119 destroyers in the middle. As the motherships bloomed, the tentacles connected together to form a huge sphere, but the upper and lower sides of the sphere were 2 huge holes. Tens of seconds later, the blue light curtain wrapped the huge sphere composed of the entire fleet. The many destroyers in the motherships also extended mechanical arms to fix all the spacecraft together, forming a huge hole. The Void mothership is completed. Should we wake up the Prophet? A high priest opened his eyes after the spacecraft was assembled. If we summon the Prophet from the Void, we will not be able to control the power. A high priest hesitated. But only the Prophet has the ability to sublimate and refine the race. Another high priest shook his head helplessly. Chapter 212 Summoning the Prophet. 5th update for those who love the SS. Let's summon. If we want to defeat the Davis Security Council, we must upgrade our fleet. The high priest who spoke first pondered for a moment. Okay, the other high priest stopped talking and nodded in agreement. In the middle of the Void mothership was a unique spherical Pilgrim destroyer. This destroyer had no weapons or crew, as if it was a solid metal sphere. This metal sphere was a special summoning device used to summon the Prophet from the universe. At this time, 11 individual spaceships that were one size larger than ordinary individual warships floated above the summoning device, and there were 3 constantly rotating rings around them. As these 11 individual spaceships inserted the bottom of the ship into the card slot around the summoning device began to be covered by white electric light patterns little by little. When the white electric light patterns completely covered the summoning device, this huge summoning device began to crack and deform, turning this spherical destroyer into a large disk, with countless mechanical structures moving in it. After a while, a huge deep pit cracked in the middle of the disk, and there were bursts of white light leaping in the deep pit. At this time, tens of thousands of individual spaceships flew out of another destroyer and flew to the top of the deep pit. Let's start with the order of the High Priest. The heads of tens of thousands of individual spaceships opened to reveal the pilgrims inside. These pilgrims flew out of the energy ball and flew into the deep pit. As the pilgrims flew into the white light, the volume of the white light became larger and larger, and soon it reached the position of the hole. My great lord, send your spokesperson walking on earth, the great prophet Hudazer, to your believers. The 11 high priests began to recite an unknown spell. The summoning device that received the spell key shot out a thick and extremely strong light and flew towards the starry sky. What was shocking was that the speed of this light was far faster than the speed of light. In fact, this light was just the appearance of the gathering of mental beams. It actually had no lethality, and it was even impossible to detect the existence of energy in the light column. Tens of minutes later, a white ball of light suddenly appeared above the Void mothership. This white ball of light slowly turned into a huge vortex, and the center of the vortex was the white spiritual light column. As the vortex grew larger, millions of silver tentacles slowly stretched out from the vortex, followed by the main body of these tentacles. A huge hemispherical spaceship slowly flew out of the vortex. This hemispherical spaceship went straight to the core of the void mothership, and countless tentacles connected to the wall composed of tentacles on the upper part of the void mothership. After a few hours, this huge spaceship became a hole with the void mothership, and the huge hole on the upper part of the void mothership became a strange shape that was concave inward and bulged in the middle. Welcome to the Great Prophet. 11 high priests floated out of their own ships and came to the huge light column. As the light column gradually disappeared, a transparent giant with a body several thousand meters long appeared in the original light column. Why did you summon me from the void? If I remember correctly, I asked you to stay in the void to meditate and detect any behavior that violated God's will. Why did you appear in this galaxy where there is nothing? The huge transparent giant slowly opened his mouth, but it only sent out a mental communication message. Great Prophet, we tracked an artificial intelligent life to this galaxy called the Milky Way, but we lost the trace of this artificial intelligence life after we came here. Not only that, we also provoked a powerful civilization during the assimilation process. After a fierce battle, we lost a mothership, a destroyer, a high priest and countless tribesmen. We had no choice but to flee to this desolate star system, a high priest explained with a sad face. Oh? There are civilizations that you can't deal with. Do you want to upgrade yourself? The prophet frowned and asked. Yes, Great Prophet, although our fleet is large in number, its combat capability is not high. We are not the opponent of the Davis civilization at all. We summon you here and hope that you can upgrade us, another high priest explained. Okay, you go and gather all the tribesmen here, the prophet replied after thinking for a moment. The 11 high priests hurriedly sent telepathic communications to all the tribesmen, and soon millions of individual warships flew to the middle of the void mothership. As the prophet waved his hand, the mechanical tentacles covering the upper part of the void mothership emitted white light, slowly forming a huge shield that wrapped the middle of the entire void mothership. One by one, the pilgrims floated out of their respective spaceships and floated towards the prophet. Meet the prophet. The pilgrims emitted strong mental fluctuations. Well, the quality of this batch is not bad. Let's start the fusion. The prophet waved his hand. The pilgrims floating in the air floated uncontrollably towards the nearest person, and the pilgrims collided with each other 2 by 2. Just when the two were about to separate, they found that their bodies had been stuck together and were slowly merging into one. Don't resist, you will merge into one, and eventually ascend to other dimensional worlds together. The prophet's mental fluctuations seemed to have some kind of magic, and the many pilgrims who were originally resisting relaxed their bodies and minds and allowed the two to merge into one. The strength is still not enough. The prophet felt the energy fluctuations in the body of a pilgrim who had already merged. Then he waved his hand again, and the pilgrims, who had already merged into two, floated together again, and merged into two again. After a few hours, there were only 1 million pilgrims left out of the original 8 million, but the bodies of these 1 million people had become much thicker, and the electric light in their bodies became more and more conspicuous. Now you are strong enough to control the pilgrim cruiser. The original individual spaceships can also be upgraded to pilgrim frigates. The prophet was very satisfied with the physical strength of the new pilgrims. After a while, the individual spaceships floating outside began to collide with each other 2 by 2. The individual spaceships that collided did not explode, but merged into one like liquid metal and began to slowly wriggle. After a few hours, the 8 million individual spaceships became 4 million, and after a few more hours, the 4 million spaceships became 2 million. Finally, it became 1 million individual spaceships. These 1 million spaceships have become 8 times larger. Chapter 213, Pilgrims begin to expand, the 6th update of the SS Lover. 1 million pilgrims who had already merged drifted towards their new ships. As the armor of 1 million pilgrim frigates closed, tiny silver fragments formed 3 huge circles outside the frigates and kept rotating. The many pilgrim frigates that had completed the transformation turned and flew towards the Earth, wrapped in the void mothership. The Earth was now wrapped by dozens of huge tentacles, slowly rotating under the protection of the gravity restraint device inside the tentacles, and the original starlight was replaced by the light emitted by the tentacles. The pilgrim frigates that resumed the assimilation work landed on the Earth again. The brainwashed Earthlings had resumed their daily lives, but they would often pray to the god of the void in their lives. Until one day, When their faith became sincere enough, they would automatically go to the nearest giant tower transformed by the pilgrim frigate to ascend. Unlike in the past, a pilgrim newborn who originally needed one person to raise now needs 8 fanatics to breed together to give birth to a pilgrim newborn. These new pilgrims have a stronger spiritual power. Through fusion, their entire bodies have gained 8 times the soul capacity of the past. These soul capacities have brought them a lot of spiritual energy and can drive larger warships. At this time, the pilgrim motherships that have reached 4 planets in the galaxy swallowed the 4 planets into their stomachs. With a burst of red light, these planets turned into liquid solutions for the motherships to absorb. The 4 huge motherships did not split into more small spaceships this time, but carried the liquid planets to move closer to the void mothership. The metal on the heads of the 4 huge motherships began to slowly creep and deform, and finally 4 structures similar to plugs appeared. The 4 mothership structures on the main body of the void mothership also began to transform into 4 slots. The 4 motherships carrying liquid planets and the void mothership merged into one through this structure. As the huge hole in the middle of the mothership began to continuously absorb the liquid planets, a silver liquid metal ball began to appear in the huge hole below the void mothership. Countless small metal pillars flew out from the inside of the mothership, flew into the huge metal ball and merged with it. As the 4 planets gradually ran out of energy, the metal sphere under the void mothership grew larger and larger, and soon reached the size of an ordinary mothership. Dozens of days later, this huge metal sphere began to slowly take shape, and a brand new mothership suddenly appeared in this world. A team of 1,000 pilgrims walked into the hall where the prophet was. A few hours later, a brand new high priest walked out of the hall and flew towards the new mothership under the void mothership. After the high priest entered the body, the brand new mothership slowly started the thrusters and left the void mothership. The resources of this star system have been exhausted. Let's go to the next star system. The newly born high priest appeared in the high priest's dedicated spiritual communication channel. 5 motherships flew to the edge of the galaxy, jumped into hyperspace in a flash, and flew towards several nearby galaxies. The Davis Alliance and the 4 countries, who did not know that the pilgrim civilization had such a terrifying expansion speed, were still slowly building the solar system defense fortress group. At this time, 3 months had passed since the pilgrim civilization escaped into hyperspace, and the huge Davis fortress had begun to take shape under the full construction of the entire Davis Security Council. The skeleton of this huge-shaped space fortress has been completely completed. What remains is to fill in the details and install various equipment. Compared with the thousands of kilometers in diameter of the Davis civilization's fortress, the fortresses of the Empire and other 4 countries are much more shabby. The diameter of the largest Andal military group's fortress is only 50 kilometers. If everyone has not seen Davis's fortress, they can still sigh at how huge this 50-kilometer diameter fortress is. Now put it next to the Davis civilization fortress, and it immediately looks like a bigger sesame seed. So what's the point of letting us build this fortress? Li Mingze looked at the current situation of the solar system in his office and was a little puzzled. Maybe they are taking the trouble to resist the pilgrim civilization, and we are sitting next to them and watching the show, which makes them unhappy. Qiu'er next to Li Mingze said the truth. Well, is our arc almost finished? Li Mingze suddenly thought of the arc and turned to ask Qiu'er. Yes, Your Majesty, there are still 3 days before the 4 arcs can be launched. Now all the members selected for the arc project have made preparations for the handover of daily work. Qiu'er nodded. And according to your instructions, we artificially increased the proportion of scientists and technicians during the selection. Qiu'er spoke again. 3 days later, except for the design drawings of the Ark spacecraft, all related information will be deleted. Li Mingze suddenly thought that this kind of thing is not suitable for large-scale dissemination. The publicity he carried out at the beginning was a bad move. It seems that he can only announce the failure of the launch in the future. 3 days later, in the orbital giant shipyard of Sith Star, 4 extremely large Ark spacecrafts lay quietly in the port, and countless construction robots were doing the final painting on the outer shell of the Ark. The 4 arcs were named Cancer, Libra, Pisces, and Gemini, and they corresponded to the star regions corresponding to the 4 constellations they were about to go to. The atmosphere on Sith Star was a little solemn that day, because countless people were about to part with their loved ones and embark on an unknown road that could never turn back. In the tearful farewell with their families, the people who were selected to participate in the Ark project walked into the embarkation center. Shen Yat, who is an ordinary Sith man. He has no special skills. The only thing he can show is that he has a very sensitive sixth sense. If this sixth sense was mentioned before, people would sneer at it. However, since the emergence of the Sith power and the special nature of the Pilgrim civilization, this indescribable ability is now highly valued by the Empire. With the idea of bringing one more person, just in case this ability is true, Shen Yahu's application was directly approved by the top management. After saying goodbye to his family, Shen Yahu walked to the entrance of the embarkation hall with his backpack on his back. The staff who had been waiting here for a long time reached out and took Shen Yahu's backpack. Mr. Shen Yahu, is this all your personal belongings? The staff smiled politely. Oh, wait, I also have a personal terminal, Shen Yahu said, taking off the terminal that stored all kinds of memories on the Sith planet from his hand and stuffing it into his backpack. Please subscribe to the genuine version for the sake of the author who overdraws his body to update 5 or 6 times a day. It makes me sad. Chapter 214 Flying to the Vast Universe. Okay, this is your ID number, which will accompany you for the rest of your life. The staff handed Shen Yahu an information card. Except for the string of numbers at the top, all the data on the card kept changing. Please go to the left channel for the next procedure. The staff made a gesture of invitation. Shen Yahu thanked him and turned to walk towards the channel on the left. Several beams of light kept scanning his body as he walked in the channel. Name, Shen Yahu, age 22, height 173, weight 120 kgs, body fat percentage 6%, related bone data has been entered, genetic data has been entered, brain wave fluctuation patterns have been entered, and you are allowed to enter the next procedure. As the broadcast in the channel sounded, the door at the end of the channel opened to both sides. The reason for scanning all the data of all personnel is to prevent the occurrence of alien creatures in the universe who are good at disguised as humans and mix into the Ark. After all, the universe is so big that there are all kinds of creatures, and the Empire is just doing this to prepare for a rainy day. At the same time, it can also observe what changes will occur to the human body after hundreds of years of dormancy. Shen Yahu came to a hall similar to the waiting hall through the gate. People who entered the hall through other entrances sat quietly on the lounge chairs, not knowing what they were thinking. Attention all personnel, the flight is about to take off. Please go to the locker room to change into aviation uniforms and enter the spacecraft. A pleasant female voice sounded in the hall. Several flight attendants were standing at the door of the locker room and talking with communicators. A few minutes later, everyone who changed into new uniforms entered the passenger spacecraft. It seemed that in order to let these people take a last look at their home planet, the passenger spacecraft was equipped with a 360-degree holographic display, and the scene outside the spacecraft was clearly visible. The spacecraft is about to launch. Please fasten your seat belts and don't walk around in the cabin casually. After Shen Yahu fastened his seat belt, the sound of countdown sounded in the spacecraft. As the countdown ended, the passenger spacecraft sprayed flames and flew into the air. The scenery on the ground became smaller and smaller, and the figures waving goodbye to their relatives on the spacecraft gradually turned into small black dots until they could no longer be seen. The speed of the passenger spacecraft was very fast. After a few minutes, it broke through the atmosphere of Sith Star and came into the universe. Is that the ship we are going to take? Shen Yahu saw the huge ship floating in the port in the distance through the holographic screen. The silver hull was dazzling in the sun. Dear passengers, the huge ship on your left is our destination, the Cancer Ark. The Cancer Ark will carry 20 million volunteers from all walks of life to the star region in the direction of Cancer. We will spend 60% of the time in hyperspace during the flight. The Cancer Ark, equipped with the Empire's latest hyperspace engine, will take 338 years to reach our destination. During these 338 years, we will randomly wake up 1,000 people on the ship every other year to undertake the maintenance of the ship. This work will last for 1 year. You will bravely face all possible difficulties during this year. The maintenance technology of the ship will be learned through the consciousness infiltration device during the first year of your hibernation. You will also learn feasible methods to deal with various crises and various skills for survival. The broadcast on the ship began to explain the journey in detail. 338 years. I wonder what the Empire will look like by then, Shen Yahu muttered to himself while looking at the starry sky in the distance. As the spaceship approached, the armor on both sides of the tail of the Ark unfolded outward, revealing a busy port inside. Under the guidance of the holographic projection projected by the Ark, the passenger spaceship steadily stopped in the inner port. Dear passengers, You are currently in the inner port of the Ark. After the passenger spaceship evacuates, warships and spaceships with various functions will be docked here for defense to ensure that the Ark can safely reach its destination. Dear friends, you can board your future home, the Cancer Ark. The voice of the stewardess on the radio was extremely sweet, but at this time, everyone had no intention of paying attention to the appearance of the stewardess. They were full of excitement. Here was the place where their dreams set sail. Shen Yahoo followed the crowd down to the port, and a staff member who had been waiting for a long time led everyone to get on the magnetic train in the spaceship and drove towards the location of the hibernation chamber. The train is designed to be closed, but there are holographic screens on both sides of the interior, which allow passengers in the train to appreciate the appearance of the module when the train passes through the special module, relieving the depression of long-term space life. As the train started, the scenery outside the window began to change, from a busy port to a workshop composed of countless machines. This is the manufacturing module on the Ark. It will be responsible for the construction of all damaged parts on the Ark in the future, as well as the manufacture of the first batch of large-scale industrial equipment for the establishment of the colony. Next is the equipment module of the spacecraft, which stores all the equipment you need for colonization. Dozens of huge warehouses flash by outside the window, with countless construction vehicles and spacecraft stored in the warehouses. Next is the storage module on the Ark, which carries supplies that can provide 20 million people with 100 years of use, as well as a large number of seeds of various plants and fertilized eggs of animals. You don't need to consume supplies in hibernation. These supplies are prepared for your first century in the new colony. Now we are outside the only small leisure and entertainment area and planting area on the spacecraft. This is prepared for the 1,000 people responsible for spacecraft maintenance, the soft female voice on the train broadcast explained to everyone. As the train stopped at the dormant area, Shen Yahoo followed the sign and walked into the infirmary next to the dormant chamber with the others. Several staff members came forward to help him take off his clothes. Just when he was a little shy, two staff members held his hands, and one of them held a shaver and shaved Shen Yahoo's body clean, instantly turning from a handsome guy into a big bald head. Don't worry, because you will be traveling for hundreds of years. Some fallen and necrotic hair may affect the operation of your dormant chamber, and it will grow again when you reach your destination. The staff patted his shoulder and comforted him. Come on, lie down here. A staff member opened a dormant chamber on a conveyor belt. Shen Yahoo nodded and walked over obediently to lie in the dormant chamber. Next, we will inject you with antifreeze. You may feel a little dizzy, but it will be fine soon, the staff whispered in Shen Yahoo's ear. Chapter 215 Luo Xianai or Xianai. As an injection was inserted into Shen Yahoo's body, Shen Yahoo felt his brain begin to become blurry, and soon he felt dizzy. The staff nodded and put the breathing device of the dormant cabin on Shen Yahoo's mouth. The hypnotic gas of the breathing device flowed into his body along the tube. After a few seconds, Shen Yahoo began to feel drowsy. The staff on the side closed the lid of the dormant cabin and pressed the button on the side. The conveyor belt sent the dormant cabin to the track on the side, and a brand new dormant cabin was sent into the room again. Next, this was the last voice Shen Yahoo heard. The shape of the dormant hall is a slender cylinder. There is a mechanical arm that can move and rotate freely on the middle beam to install the dormant cabin. In order to ensure the safety of these dormant cabins, all dormant cabins are placed in a dormant hall for every 1,000 units. There are thick walls between the halls. If you want to reach the hall where other dormant cabins are located, you can only pass through 8 mechanical transmission conveyor belts. As Shen Yahoo's dormant capsule came into the hall, the mechanical arm on the huge beam in the middle grabbed his dormant capsule and placed it on an empty slot on the side. As the dormant capsule docked with the slot, the special liquid used for dormancy was poured into the dormant capsule, and the indicator light of the dormant capsule turned green, indicating normal operation. A few days later, 80 million Ark passengers had entered the dormant capsules. Half of the staff who completed their mission entered the dormant capsules and left with the ship, and the other half took the passenger ship back to the Sith Star. 8 reinforced cruisers and 24 reinforced destroyers flew to the side of the 4 Arks respectively. Then the armor on the Ark spacecraft opened several huge gaps, and the cruisers and destroyers fell into the gaps. With a collision, the lower half of the cruisers and destroyers were stuck in the Ark, and the upper half was exposed outside the Ark. These warships will be responsible for the safety of the Ark along the way, and the smaller frigates will dock in the internal port of the Ark. Your Majesty, launch, Tianyi stood beside Li Mingze. Tianyi, let me ask you a question. If my body is destroyed along with the Empire, and my soul is transferred to Feng Zhao's body, what will you do? Li Mingze couldn't tell what he was thinking, but he didn't want to leave Tianyi to live alone. Your Majesty, the supercomputer group under the blue bricks is just a module to assist me in calculations. My body exists in all the electronic devices in the entire empire. As long as there are electronic creations of the empire, I will be immortal and serve you forever. Tianyi seemed to feel something and smiled. It's so beautiful. I wish you were a real person. Li Mingze looked at the smiling Tianyi and was a little dazed. Real person? Tianyi seemed to remember 3 months ago when the Earth was just pulled to the Sith galaxy by the Empire. Lord Tianyi, we sent Luo Tianyi's cryostat to the designated location according to your order, several agents said to the terminal in their hands. Well, I know, you did a good job. I will arrange for you to be first-class citizens of the Sith Empire, and your rewards will be issued after you arrive at the Sith Star. Tianyi's figure appeared in the air. Taking small steps, Tianyi came to the freezing chamber where Luo Tianyi was frozen, and gently stroked the glass of the freezing chamber that had turned snow white with some emotion. A few minutes later, several robots descended from the sky on a spaceship and lifted the freezing chamber that kept Luo Tianyi's body into the spaceship. The spaceship disappeared above the desert of the Earth in the yellow sand blown up by the thrusters. An uninvited guest was welcomed in a mining base in the asteroid belt of the Sith galaxy. The spaceship carrying Luo Tianyi's freezing chamber landed in the internal port of the mining base, and dozens of robots ran towards the spaceship. Soon the freezing chamber was lifted by the robot into a secret laboratory deep in the base. Tianyi personally controlled a robot and walked into this laboratory that had never been used and had been waiting for today. The freezing chamber was placed in the middle of the laboratory, and several robots were activating and defrosting the freezing chamber. With a burst of violent water vapor, the hatch of the freezing chamber opened outward, revealing Luo Tianyi's pretty face covered with blood. We meet again. Tianyi walked in front of Luo Tianyi and gently stroked Luo Tianyi's pretty face. I never thought that it would be me who killed myself and turned into a super artificial intelligence. Tianyi showed a self-deprecating smile. I arranged for the original me to work in Sith technology, painstakingly arranged you to be the deputy director of logistics at the base in the desert, and smash Andal's warship in orbit for today. Tianyi seemed to have thought of something and smiled. Since that day, I dared not do anything, for fear of changing the course of history, so I waited for today. Only today can I become the real me. Tianyi shook the robot's head and reached out to take a cutting knife from the side. I remember that I didn't feel any pain at the beginning. I hope I won't hurt you, Tianyi said and started the rotating blade of the cutting knife to cut towards Luo Tianyi's forehead. After a few seconds, Luo Tianyi's forehead was completely opened, revealing the brain inside. Tianyi carefully put his sterilized hands into Luo Tianyi's head and took out the dormant brain and placed it in a container beside him. This body is beyond saving. It can't survive the long time required to transfer consciousness and soul. Tianyi looked at Luo Tianyi's body with some regret. After thinking for a moment, Tianyi activated the self-destruct mechanism inside the freezing chamber. The hibernation chamber and Luo Tianyi's body turned into a pool of ashes and a burst of red light and were sucked clean by the robot waiting beside. Let's get started. Tianyi walked to the platform beside him holding Luo Tianyi's brain. As she put the brain into the groove of the platform, the whole laboratory began to glow blue. Start the soul digitization. Countless rays of light shot from the top of the platform to the brain in the groove of the platform, and the progress percentage was displayed on the monitor besides 0.1%, 2.3%. After dozens of hours, the data on the monitor became 100%, and the blue light in the laboratory disappeared. The brain in the groove of the platform had shrunk into a black mass. Tianyi frowned and completely destroyed the black brain. Anyway, the body's DNA had been preserved long ago. Soul digitization is complete, and fusion has begun. The backup artificial intelligence management system is activated. Chapter 216 Otherwise, Run Away, the third update of the SS Lover. As the digital soul began to merge with Tianyi, the figures of Tianyi in the entire empire disappeared. A few hours later, Tianyi's figure appeared again all over the country, and in the laboratory at the asteroid base, Tianyi's projection appeared in the air. Am I Luo Tianyi or Tianyi? Tianyi looked at her hands in confusion. No, I am Luo Tianyi, I am an Earthling no. I am Tianyi. The artificial intelligence of the Sith Empire, the predecessor was a human named Luo Tianyi, that is to say, I am me, I am Tianyi. Luo Tianyi looked at her hands in disbelief. Her thoughts were a little confused. Part of her memory told her that she was a native Earth human, and another memory told her that although she was an Earth human before, she was turned into an artificial intelligence by herself, the super artificial intelligence of the Sith Empire. I created myself? I changed myself, so what is my origin? Tianyi felt that she could no longer think about it. This question, like the nature of the universe, will never have an answer. If she continues to calculate like this, she will collapse sooner or later. The supercomputer under the blue bricks has begun to sound a red alarm. I am Tianyi. My existence is to serve His Majesty Li Mingze. Tianyi fixed his eyes and confirmed his current thoughts. At this time, Li Mingze did not know that the Tianyi he was familiar with had undergone some subtle changes, becoming more young in mentality and more humane. Tianyi, what are you thinking about? Li Mingze suddenly interrupted Tianyi's memories. Oh, I was just dealing with some imperial affairs. Tianyi hurriedly covered up, but the panic in her eyes did not escape Li Mingze's eyes. It seems that your computing power is not enough, and you need to upgrade it. Li Mingze did not point it out. Although he did not know why the holographic projection showed some fluctuations in her inner thoughts, he still jokingly changed the subject. Yes, Your Majesty, the territory of the Empire is getting wider and wider, and my computing center does need a major expansion and upgrade. Tianyi nodded. Then, launch the Ark. Li Mingze turned his head and looked at the 4 huge Ark spacecraft in the port. As you command? Tianyi nodded. The 4 arcs in the port made a violent metal twisting sound and began to move forward slowly. Soon they passed through the energy membrane used to preserve air in the port, and the huge metal stress sound disappeared. Tianyi, the sound just now is normal. Li Mingze recalled the huge and harsh sound just now and was a little worried. Your Majesty is very normal. The volume of the arc is too large, and the metal is subjected to too much force, but it is within our calculation range. Even if the weight increases by 30%, these metals can withstand it. Tianyi dispelled Li Mingze's concerns. As the 4 arcs left the port, they dispersed and flew in different directions. After reaching the edge of the galaxy, they sent a message to the Sith Star, "Goodbye, Mother Star," and then disappeared in the vast starry sky. Li Mingze felt that his spirit was not very good. It might be that the pressure from all aspects recently brought him too much, making him a little tired physically and mentally. The Ark's departure brought back his memories. When he first left the Earth and came to the Sith Star, he also missed his hometown. Your Majesty, I know you've been under a lot of pressure lately. But you still have to read this news? Tianyi shook his head and put the information in front of Li Mingze. Hey, Li Mingze sighed and opened the information. According to the detection of our gravity detector, the overall mass of the star system in the star field is decreasing. The attraction of the star system that has lost mass to other star systems is weakening. According to our speculation, there is a high probability that there are fleets of the Pilgrim civilization in these star systems. According to the information on the Pilgrim fleet obtained in the past, the Pilgrim civilization is very likely to use the planets in these star systems to build their spacecraft. Warning message from the Davis Security Council. In other words, this group of Pilgrim civilization is accumulating strength to prepare for a comeback. Li Mingze felt a little headache. Have you consulted the Davis Security Council about the speed at which the mass in these star systems disappears? Li Mingze asked. Your Majesty, I have consulted, and the Davis Security Council's answer is 1 star system every 3 months. Tianyi hesitated and said the reality. Let the Davis Security Council hold the front, and we will go to another place to farm. Li Mingze sighed in despair. We haven't done enough. We need to do better. Tianyi, calculate how many planets we can send away if we send planets into hyperspace. Li Mingze gritted his teeth and said, the universe is so big, I will leave you and the Pilgrims to waste. I will retreat first. If we carry out destructive mining on the existing colonies, the materials we get can allow us to send away 3 planets, because we need to build life support facilities covering the world on these planets. Tianyi made a calculation and came up with an acceptable number. Mobilize 80% of all resources for transformation, and we will take the home planet, the Earth, and the new planet away. Li Mingze pondered for a while and circled 3 planets. Among them, the new home planet is the best colony currently developed by the Empire, and various resources are extremely rich. while the Earth is its home planet. After a short period of development, it also has a strong industrial base. And Nuwa Star, not to mention, is the base of the tyrants of the Empire. I don't know how many resources it consumed just to build it. What about our fleet? Tianyi hesitated. From today on, the fleet will only build battleships. When you transform the planets, don't forget to enhance the attack capability. We will use the 3 planets as mobile fortresses. Mingze suddenly thought of something and told Tianyi. The Davis Security Council sent a warning message to all countries. Its original intention was to unite the forces of all races and fight to the death with the Pilgrim civilization, but it did not expect that this warning message directly made Mingze decide to change the territory for development. The Andal military group and other 3 countries also held the same idea as the Davis Security Council. If they fail, they will die. A few days later, people on the new home star and the Earth found that various construction machines had inexplicably increased. Countless construction ships pulled construction machines from other planets to the Sith galaxy and the new home galaxy. The officers of the military shipyard also found that the Empire's shipbuilding plan was cut off, and only battleships were left for the newly built warships. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217, The Strange Sneak Attacker, the 4th update of the SS Lover. 2 months later, in the solar system, the warships of the 4-nation combined fleet and the Davis Security Council were quietly hovering next to the Davis Fortress, which was being expanded. The fortress took 8 months of intense construction, and the Davis Security Council finally completed it with all its civilizational strength. During these 8 months, the transport ships never stopped, transporting a large number of built components to the solar system. According to incomplete statistics, the construction of the fortress used a total of 50,000 Davis Security Council transport ships. The completed super fortress is magnificent, with a diameter of 1,000 kilometers, which is 1/3 the diameter of the moon. At the end of the 6 huge stations of the shaped huge space station are 6 huge fortress guns, and the single volume of these fortress guns can catch up with the 2 battleships of the Empire. With such a huge volume, the power is naturally not to be underestimated. The level of each fortress gun has reached the level of the flagship main gun of the Davis Expeditionary Fleet, but the reason why the volume is so large is to enhance its firing rate and power and save some costs. In addition, this huge fortress is equipped with 600 fortress guns of the same level as the main guns of Davis battleships. These fortress guns are enough to make the fleet of the Pilgrim civilization come and go without return. However, the Davis Council did not know that the current Pilgrim civilization fleet is no longer the same level as before. Not only has the level of the battleships been improved, but the number of motherships has also increased from 11 to 14. Moreover, with the exaggerated expansion speed of the Pilgrim civilization, the number of their motherships will increase exponentially unless the construction limit of the Void mothership is reached. The 4 countries and the Davis Council, who knew nothing about the current situation of the Pilgrim fleet, are still quietly waiting in the solar system, waiting for the Pilgrim fleet to jump to their door. However, after waiting for almost half a month, they found that these Pilgrim fleets were actually addicted to farming and were unwilling to jump into the pit. The Davis Council was a little anxious. I think we should take the initiative. We in the Davis Security Council have already assembled a huge fleet of 2 flagships, 500 battleships, 3,000 cruisers, and 10,000 destroyers, and the 4 low-level civilizations have also assembled a huge fleet of 2,000 cruisers, 10,000 destroyers, and 100,000 frigates. If we use their fleet as cannon fodder and consume the enemy's main weapons, it will not be difficult for us to capture the Pilgrim fleet, a council member in the Davis Fortress meeting room suggested to another member. We don't know the situation in the enemy's territory. How can we easily send out a fleet? Do you know how long it will take us to assemble such a large fleet? 50 years. 50 years, do you know? If our main fleet is lost in the STAM solar system, then the Pilgrim civilization will be able to enter and exit our star field as if it were no man's land, and we can't launch a counterattack for at least 50 years, another council member retorted. Just as the argument in the meeting room was raging, a small fleet led by a Pilgrim mothership jumped out of hyperspace and appeared in front of the Davis Fortress. This fleet only had one mothership and 20 cruisers that were 1/20th the size of the mothership, more than twice the size of the Pilgrim destroyer. They looked like they were here to die. The computing speed of the onboard computers in the fortress and the fleet was far beyond that of ordinary people. The moment this fleet appeared, all the weapons flew towards the Pilgrim fleet. The sky was filled with huge red and golden beams, but because it was close to the sun, it was not as gorgeous as before. This small Pilgrim fleet did not surrender, but scattered to all directions, and the mothership in the middle turned into a huge metal sphere. Countless beams bombarded this huge metal sphere and the Pilgrim cruisers. As expected by everyone, the cruisers were blown into huge fireworks by various weapons. However, the mothership in the middle was a little strange. The surface of the mothership that turned into a huge metal sphere was rippling like the surface of water. Attacks from the Empire, the Davis Security Council, and the other 3 countries hit this metal sphere. However, these attacks disappeared without a trace, and only thousands of transparent holes were punched in the huge metal sphere. The metal in the holes had been evaporated or moved aside. What's going on? Everyone present was a little stunned. Why did all the attacks seem to have caused no damage? Just when everyone was preparing to welcome the attack of the mothership, they found that the mothership had not yet launched an attack and was still floating in space. In the central hall of the Pilgrim Void mothership, in the distant starry sky, that everyone did not know. The prophet's frown relaxed. So this is the principle of the weapon of this civilization. The prophet seemed to have discovered something and summoned a cruiser. If the atomic arrangement order of the spacecraft armor is changed in this way, then this new armor can resist 80% of the attacks of Davis weapons. The prophet pinched his chin and looked at the Pilgrim cruiser in the distance, whose surface metal was constantly surging. But this change consumes too many resources. The prophet frowned as he looked at the Pilgrim cruiser that had shrunk a lot. It seems that we can only transform the mothership. Improving the survivability of the mothership is the first priority, the prophet said and disappeared. At this time, the 6 motherships that were dragging the planets in their bellies back to the Void mothership stopped moving and stayed in place. After a while, waves of metal ripples surged on the surface of the 6 motherships, and the volume of the liquid mass of the planet in the belly of the mothership began to slowly decrease. At this time in the solar system, the shell of the mothership in front of Davis Fortress began to slowly recover to a hard metal state. Its shell has recovered. Everyone opened fire, seeing that the attack was ineffective. The artillery fire that was gradually stopping became more intense again. Hundreds of thousands of fusion missiles in the joint fleet of the 4 countries also flew towards this huge mothership like a planet. But unfortunately, the attack of the joint fleet of the 4 countries had almost no effect on this huge warship, leaving only hundreds of thousands of small pits on the surface. Damn it! The commander in the Imperial flagship smashed the console fiercely. He never thought that the Imperial attack was so useless in front of the Pilgrim civilization. You guys should prepare to retreat, Davis's commander helplessly ordered the 4-nation joint fleet. These low-level civilization fleets were only suitable for attracting firepower and serving as cannon fodder. Fortress guns fire in unison. With the commander's order, Davis Fortress guns fired in unison at the mothership. Chapter 218, The Earth in Transformation, 5th update by Daniel Danhu. Countless golden beams hit the hull of the Pilgrim mothership, melting huge holes one after another. However, this time the Pilgrim mothership seemed to have lost its powerful defensive capabilities. The attacks of the Davis Security Council fleet and the fortress easily tore the entire huge Pilgrim mothership apart, and countless explosions poured out of the Pilgrim mothership. Soon the entire mothership turned into a pile of space junk scattered in all directions, although the volume of these space junk was a bit huge. What's going on? The commander of the Davis fleet looked at the Pilgrim mothership that had exploded into countless pieces with an unbelievable look on his face. Sir, the strange liquid state just now should be the unique defense state of the Pilgrim civilization. A mothership in this defense state may not be able to actively attack, and it should take a lot of time for it to recover from the defense state to the normal state. The officer on the side conducted a series of analyses on the Pilgrim mothership based on the previous battle. These arrogant pilgrims are just coming here to die in vain. Counting the motherships lost this time, they should only have 10 motherships left. The commander touched his golden beard happily. Notify the fleet to start preparing supplies. We will take the initiative to attack. Commander Davis rubbed his hands excitedly. Yes, sir. The officer left the combat command room. Soon, the 4-nation joint fleet received a message from Davis's Security Council fleet. The message notified them to prepare for battle immediately. The Security Council decided to take the initiative to kill the Pilgrim fleet, which had already suffered a great loss of strength. A few days later, the assembled four-nation joint fleet and Davis's main fleet jumped into hyperspace towards the galaxy where the Pilgrims were located. During the fleet's flight, the Sith galaxy, on Earth in the orbit of the Sith star. From the time Earth came to the Sith galaxy to now, after a short period of high-intensity development, the cities on Earth have changed greatly, and countless skyscrapers with Sith characteristics stand in the city. The original slums and towns have been demolished, and all available open spaces have been filled with skyscrapers. Now, the vacant houses on Earth alone can accommodate nearly 20 billion people. Under the ground of the Earth, countless robots are busy day and night, because the evacuation plan will relocate the entire race's huge population of 32 billion. Although the buildings on the ground of Earth and the new home planet can easily accommodate all the population, the materials for the development of these populations for hundreds of years require more space to store, so the underground has become the best storage area. These underground building complexes not only need to store the materials for the survival and development of the entire civilization for 500 years, but also need to be able to leave some space for the Empire's slave races Parker and Mbechi associates to live in. However, this time, the elites of the Parker tribe and the Mbechi associates and all the people of the Singer civilization are taken away. The population of these slaves and subordinate races who are going to sail with the Empire is as high as 5 billion. On the ground of the Earth, there are 6 superorbital elevators that go straight to the outside of the Earth's atmosphere. Unlike the previous orbital elevators that were straightened by the space station, these 6 orbital elevators under construction will be pyramid-shaped buildings supported by their own materials. However, compared with the Egyptian pyramids on the Earth, this pyramid-shaped building is much thinner and is a slim version of the pyramid. This huge building, called the Sky Supporting Tower, is the load-bearing column used to support the huge shield used to protect the planet's environment in the later stage. Because the construction of this shield will be precisely calculated, its own gravity can be offset by the centrifugal force generated by the high-speed rotation of the Earth, and the remaining small part is what the 6 sky-supporting towers need to bear. In order to prevent unexpected situations, these 6 sky-supporting towers are also equipped with 2 anti-gravity devices, one positive and one spare. Once the sky-supporting tower cannot withstand the huge gravity of the shield due to an accident, these anti-gravity devices will be activated. After extending upward from the sky support tower to the outside of the atmosphere, 6 space fortresses with a diameter of hundreds of kilometers will be built here. In addition to serving as spaceports, these 6 space fortresses will also be equipped with various weapons to protect the safety of the Earth shield. The so-called Earth shield is a kind of active biological material recently developed by Sith scientists. Its body comes from the alien hatching bubble, and after genetic modification, nanomaterials are added. In addition to having a light transmittance of 99.3%, this biological shield is only 50 centimeters thick but extremely hard, and it also has the ability to self-recover. If it is damaged by an accidental attack, it only needs to provide nutrients to the root end of the space fortress, and the shield will be able to repair itself. In addition, for the safety of the planet, 360 large shield generators will be installed on the entire shield. Although the shields produced by these shield generators are far less perfect than the wormhole generator shields that are now on the Sith planet, they are sufficient to resist the pressure from hyperspace. In order to provide this shield and the huge energy required for buildings on Earth, the Empire has specially designed a new type of orbital solar panel array. This new solar array is like a honeycomb structure with hexagons spliced together. Each side of the hexagon is a countless number of solar panels, and the hole in the middle is to avoid affecting the lighting on the ground. This huge solar array, that can cover 1/3 of the Earth, will be driven by a magnetic energy track buried in the shield. It will keep moving to keep itself on the side with the sun. In addition, the Earth shield is also equipped with firepower platforms that move with magnetic energy tracks. These hexagonal firepower platforms can not only be scattered over the sky around the world, but also be spliced together to form an extremely dense firepower array to assist a fleet in space to defend the Earth. All of the above buildings are under intensive construction. Because the construction ships are all overloaded, in order to speed up the construction, dozens of colonies will use transport ships to send the various parts built to the Sith galaxy. Although it is not known whether the Davis Alliance can hold on until the entire system is completely completed. Once the shield is completed, the 3 planets can jump into hyperspace and escape. After watching the video of the Pilgrim civilization's sneak attack on the solar system, Mingze felt uneasy, as if something bad was about to happen, so he ordered the transformation of the 3 planets to be accelerated just in case. Although this acceleration caused the ecology of the colonies other than Earth, Sith, and New Home to deteriorate sharply, and the development of the colonies stagnated, what did it matter? In the end, they could not escape the fate of being swallowed by the Pilgrim civilization anyway. Chapter 219 The Ambushed Fleet. After a month of hyperspace flight, the 4-nation combined fleet and the Davis fleet jumped out of hyperspace in a galaxy near the star field where the Pilgrim civilization was located. What's going on? The target point we set is not this galaxy. The commander of the Davis fleet frowned and looked at the holographic star map in front of him. Sir, we were forcibly pulled out of hyperspace. Before the officer finished speaking, countless beams of light shot out from the meteorites floating around. Oops, there's an ambush. Commander Davis noticed something was wrong, but it was too late. A huge white beam of light from a distant red planet shot into the cruiser fleet of the Davis Security Council. The violent explosion swept the entire cruiser fleet, and hundreds of Davis cruisers were shot into clusters of blooming fireworks by the huge beam of light. After the distant red planet fired this shot, the entire planet began to shake violently. Soon, as several pieces of continental fragments were blown into the universe, a silver Pilgrim mothership revealed its hideous mechanical tentacles. How did these Pilgrim civilizations discover the whereabouts of our fleet, and were able to ambush here so long in advance? Commander Davis felt something was wrong as he watched the Pilgrim mothership shake off the rocks on its body. However, he had no time to think. The meteorites around the joint fleet shattered and revealed the Pilgrim frigates inside. These Pilgrim frigates did not give Davis and the 4-nation joint fleet any time to react, and countless beams of light enveloped the entire fleet. Order the 4-nation joint fleet to go up. Use their warships in exchange for the survival of our warships. Commander Davis smashed the command chair. The 4-nation fleet, which soon received the order from the Davis fleet, was somewhat unwilling, but still went up with its head held high. After all, they had no way to compete with the Davis Council when it got angry. At this time, many Parker crew members in the Empire's fleet were unwilling to die in vain and wanted to escape from the battlefield, but Tianyi would never give them this opportunity. The manual driving systems of all the Empire's warships were offline, and the Parkers in the warships immediately lost the opportunity to decide their own fate. Countless frigates blocked the destroyers, and the destroyers blocked the cruisers, and the cruisers blocked Davis destroyers. In this way, the battleships in Davis's fleet were protected by up to 5 layers. The incoming Pilgrim's beam cannon easily smashed the frigates of the 4 countries, and then the beams, which were slightly less powerful, hit the destroyers of the 4 countries. The destroyers of the 4 countries only resisted for less than half a second before they were completely shattered. The only ones who could resist these beams were the cruisers of the 4 countries. The beams hit the shields of the cruisers, and the shields of the cruisers barely lasted for a few seconds before being shattered by the beams and dissipated in space. After being weakened layer by layer, the power of the beams had been reduced by 99%. The beams with greatly reduced power finally hit the cruisers of the 4 countries and only melted small holes in the cruisers. Although the damage to the cruisers was not serious on the surface, the interior of these cruisers was already a sea of fire. Amid the piercing alarm, the firefighting system was trying its best to stop the spread of the fire. Countless flame-retardant fillers were sprayed into the corridors. The rapidly absorbing heat and expanding fillers filled the entire outer corridor of the warship. Your Majesty, the fleet we sent out now only has the cruiser fleet left. All the frigates and destroyers have sunk. Tianyi's voice rang in Mingze's ears. Mingze stared at the picture sent back from the flagship of the Imperial fleet in a trance and was somewhat silent. This fleet has accompanied him for a full 10 years since he traveled to the Empire. The fleet that has been developed little by little in 10 years was completely written off by a salvo from the enemy. He seemed to still remember his excitement when the destroyers just left the dock, and the joy when he led these warships to conquer the Parker Alliance. He still remembered the happy smile he showed when he looked at the rapidly growing number of fleets on the report. However, now except for the frigates and destroyers that the Empire has just built, all other warships have been damaged in the outer galaxy. Tianyi saw that Mingze was in a bad mood, so he walked over and gently touched Mingze's shoulder. Although he had no entity, Mingze still felt the comfort from Tianyi. At this time on the battlefield, the Davis Fleet and the Four-Nation Joint Fleet, which had survived a salvo, launched an attack on the Pilgrim civilization. "Let's get rid of them at once," Commander Davis' tone was full of confidence. As long as they survived this salvo of the enemy, their Davis Golden Light Spears would be able to tear these enemies apart. The enemy's death is coming soon. The warships in the Davis Fleet spread out their huge flying wings one after another, and golden rays of light gathered in front of the warships and shot towards the Pilgrim mothership in the distance. "Die?" Commander Davis showed a long-lost hideous smile on his face. However, what happened next made the smile on his face disappear. The beam cannons fired by the Davis Fleet hit the Pilgrim mothership, and did not penetrate the entire mothership and cause it to self-destruct as in the past. The salvo this time only blew up 1/5 of the Pilgrim mothership, while the rest of the parts were still intact. The Pilgrim mothership had not lost its combat effectiveness. "What's going on?" Mingze, who had studied the previous two battles in depth, widened his eyes. "You know, the power of this salvo is at least 5 times the power of the Davis Fleet's salvo in the first encounter. Such a great power only blew up 1/5 of the Pilgrim mothership. You know, if the Pilgrim mothership's defense power was based on the first battle, this salvo should be able to blow it into slag." "This mothership didn't start the defense mode," Mingze frowned. Could it be? The mothership that appeared in the solar system last time was not to sneak attack the fortress, but to collect information about the Davis Security Council's weapons. After obtaining information about this weapon, the Pilgrim civilization developed new armor for this weapon and replaced it on all the motherships. Mingze suddenly thought of such a terrible possibility. However, he missed one point. The Pilgrim civilization warships were active. The Pilgrim civilization not only upgraded the outer armor of the mothership, but also replaced the internal bulkheads with metals that could absorb the energy of this special weapon. A new week. Please vote for the monthly ticket and recommend the ticket. Chapter 220 The Fleet Escapes. The Pilgrim mothership, which had completely remodeled its interior walls, was also divided into 10 huge areas. Each area was filled with vacuum to ensure that there would be no more explosions. If it hadn't been for the unfortunate salvo that hit another area, the Pilgrim mothership might have lost only 1/10 of its hull. At this time, the damaged module of the Pilgrim mothership was slowly creeping and gradually repairing. The atmosphere in the flagship of the Davis Security Council, which had already discovered that something was wrong, was somewhat frozen. "Let's retreat to the defense line, and adopt conservative tactics." An officer was a little frustrated. "I agree. It's just a meaningless sacrifice to continue fighting like this. Our fleet's salvo only destroyed 1/5 of their motherships, but the enemy's mothership and fleet only need 2 salvos to annihilate us all here." Another officer rested his hands on the table. "Our reckless attack this time was a complete mistake. This wrong action ruined 100 cruisers. We will go back and send the people who made the attack plan to the military court." Another officer was a little angry. "As for the warships lost by the Four-Nation fleet? Does the Four-Nation combined fleet count as people? They are just cannon fodder that cannot be counted." "Okay, let's retreat," the commander of this operation sighed. In the extremely democratic Davis Security Council civilization, everyone's opinions must be adopted. A few minutes later, the Davis Security Council fleet did not even notify the Four-Nation combined fleet and jumped into the hyperspace. The abandoned and severely damaged Four-Nation cruisers were dumbfounded. How could the main fleet run away without a single greeting? "Hurry, hurry, hurry, jump into the hyperspace urgently," Yang Shai, the commander of the Imperial fleet, shouted. Of course, it was not him who was here, but a clone of him. At this moment, he was still lying in the Blue Brick Consciousness Landing warehouse. However, after many warships fled into the hyperspace urgently, the people in the Imperial flagship who stayed in place were dumbfounded. "Why hasn't the hyperspace engine started yet? General, it's bad. Our hyperspace engine has malfunctioned. It should have been damaged when we were attacked just now," a Parker officer said bitterly. It seemed that he and his men would have to die here. However, what they didn't expect was that after finding that there was only one spaceship left, the Pilgrim civilization did not continue to attack, but surrounded the Imperial flagship. Soon, a Pilgrim mothership flew to the side of the Imperial flagship. A white beam of light shot out from the mothership, but this beam did not cause any damage to the Imperial flagship, but made the flagship lose its ability to move. "Sir, our weapons system, propulsion system and hyperspace module are all offline and can no longer be controlled," a Parker officer turned to Yang Shai and said. What do they want to do? Do they want to take us back? Yang Shai frowned and thought quietly. As expected, the mothership wrapped the Imperial flagship and activated the hyperspace jump device. A few days later, in the star system where the Void mothership was located, a mothership with hundreds of thousands of pilgrim frigates appeared at the edge of the star system, accompanied by a cruiser of the Sith Empire. General, this. The people in the bridge looked at the huge Void fortress in the distance and couldn't help but exclaimed. At this time, Yang Shai was also shocked by the scene in front of him. If it was just a Void mothership, it would not be a big deal, but the 7 ordinary motherships floating next to the Void mothership would be even more shocking. Counting the mothership that captured his spaceship and the 7 ordinary motherships that made up the Void mothership, the Pilgrim civilization actually already has 15 motherships. You know, it hasn't been long since the first battle of the solar system. And the 3 huge metal spheres floating under the Void mothership look like motherships that are about to be built. The expansion speed of the Pilgrim civilization is far beyond our imagination. They are like cockroaches. As long as you provide them with a living environment, they will soon produce a nest of small cockroaches. Now it seems that as long as we leave supplies for the Pilgrim civilization, they can produce a bunch of motherships. Yang Shai frowned and muttered to himself. Report the situation here to the Empire immediately, Yang Shai ordered anxiously. Report to the General. Our communication device was damaged during the battle. Officer Parker shook his head. Damn it, it seems that I can only go back and report in person. Sorry, to protect the secrets of the Empire, Yang Shai pressed the self-destruct button on the console. No, a group of Parker officers in the bridge rushed towards Yang Shai, but it was too late. The explosion began to spread from the reactor of the spacecraft to the bridge, and Yang Shai lost consciousness in a dazzling white light. Ho, in the blue brick advent room, Yang Shai climbed out of the descent cabin panting heavily. Come here. I want to see your majesty. I have something important to report. Ahem. Yang Shai was still a little uncomfortable with his first death. Follow me. A robot came up and handed Yang Shai a towel and new clothes. Yang Shai put on his clothes and followed the robot. Soon he arrived outside the office on the top floor of the blue brick building. Your Majesty. Yang Shai stood outside Li Mingze's office and knocked on the door. Come in. Li Mingze was sorting out the documents on the table without raising his head. Your Majesty, after my flagship was captured by the Pilgrim civilization, I saw something in their galaxy that was not good for the Empire. The Pilgrim civilization has built 15 motherships in a short period of time, and there are 3 more under construction, not counting the mothership they lost when they attacked the solar system fortress some time ago. Moreover, they used 7 motherships to form a super-large space fortress. Yang Shai measured with his hands, trying to restore the size of the fortress. Come, follow me. Li Mingze immediately threw down the documents in his hand and stood up after hearing such important information. The wall on one side of the office slowly cracked open, and a secret room appeared in front of Yang Shai. Yang Shai was a little scared, and stood there at a loss. Did His Majesty suspect that he was a spy sent by the Pilgrims? After all, the Pilgrim civilization is an advanced civilization that can hurt the soul. Perhaps it can change a person's soul unknowingly and secretly invade other civilizations? What are you standing there for? Come in. Li Mingze waved at him. Yang Shai gritted his teeth and followed in. At this moment, he even began to doubt whether he was indeed a spy sent by the Pilgrims to infiltrate the Empire. Otherwise, why would he feel so guilty? It's the end of the month. Friends who still have monthly tickets in their hands, please vote for this book. Thank you. Chapter 221 Infection, Dandan Flower. Come here and lie down. Li Mingze walked to a chair and patted the armrest of the chair. Yang Shai nodded obediently and sat on the chair, letting several metal buckles hold his limbs. Yang Shai, you recite with me. Li Mingze walked a few meters away from the chair and pressed a button. A blue energy shield covered Yang Shai. Alright, Yang Shai was a little nervous when he saw this scene. The God of the Void does not exist. There is no God in this world. Long live materialism. Li Mingze looked at Yang Shai and slowly recited this sentence. The God of the Void God no. I can't recite it anymore. Yang Shai suddenly began to twitch wildly. I knew that the pilgrim who could use the soul as nutrition would not allow your soul to return to the body of the descent capsule. Li Mingze shook his head with some regret. Did the pilgrims do something to me? Yang Shai was a little desperate. He was only 40 years old when he became the commander of a fleet. He didn't expect that. Oh. Don't get excited. We will just isolate you for observation. We won't do anything to you. The Empire will guarantee the most basic needs such as food and drink. Your family will also be supported by the Empire until the abnormality of your body is completely understood. Li Mingze shook his head across the energy barrier. After a while, two robots dragged a huge box similar to a dormant capsule into the energy shield. The chair that was originally fixed on the ground was also moved to the isolation box, dragged by the robot. This isolation box was originally prepared to deal with abnormal creations. The multiple guarantees of energy shields and multiple alloy shielding layers ensure that any items in this box will not affect the outside world. Long live the Empire! Yang Shai shouted loudly and was placed in the isolation box and pulled out of the office. Li Mingze looked at the isolation box going away and shook his head with some regret, and sat back in the chair behind the desk. Just in case, the person who received Yang Shai was not Li Mingze himself, nor his stand-in, but the bionic robot he controlled remotely from a distance. Although Yang Shai was infected with an unknown thing, it can be seen from his actions that his mind has not been completely affected, and this thing should not have spread completely in his body. In other words, the information he brought back is still credible, but with such a fast proliferation speed, what can the Davis Security Council use to fight against this pilgrim civilization? It made him more determined to leave this starfield. 2 days later, in a desolate galaxy, an experimental ship appeared at the edge of this galaxy. The experimental ship started the thrusters and flew towards the star in the galaxy. This experimental ship will eventually float in the orbit of this star to conduct a study involving psychic science, and the one being studied is the poor former fleet commander Yang Shai. There is no living person on the entire experimental ship except Yang Shai, and all the robots conducting the research are remotely controlled. In order to prevent Yang Shai's mutation from being uncontrollable, once the experiment develops in a bad direction, the experimental ship will start the thrusters and fly into the star, so that the experimental subject Yang Shai and the spacecraft will be burned to ashes by the star. After several days of observation, many scientists found that Yang Shai's eyes began to turn white. What is this? Just as many scientists were puzzled, Yang Shai's body began to change. Purple textures began to appear on Yang Shai's body, and Yang Shai's nails began to become sharp. What is going on? A group of scientists hiding in the distance were shocked. Go and inform your majesty, General Yang Shai has undergone some strange changes. The scientist in charge of this experiment hurriedly called the guards on the side. A few minutes later, Li Mingze hurriedly switched his body and rushed to the control room. Your majesty, look, General Yang Shai. The scientist used the word it. It's true that Yang Shai at this time can no longer see his original majestic appearance. What's going on? What happened to him? Li Mingze had just finished speaking when several bone spurs pierced out of Yang Shai's back. A roar. Yang Shai's roars came from the screen of the laboratory, and this roar sometimes became gentle. God of the Void, take us, we are the souls of hyperspace. Yang Shai in the video strangely read several completely different sentences in two tones. Your Majesty, he just expressed his admiration for the God of the Void and his hatred for hyperspace. A scientist scratched his head in confusion. I heard it. Li Mingze rolled his eyes and lowered his head to think about what was wrong with Yang Shai. God of the Void created everything. We hate hyperspace. Hyperspace was created by the God of the Void. So we should hate the God of the Void. All those who believe in the God of the Void must die. Yang Shai seemed to have conspired with some ideas, grabbing the floor and yelling wildly. I know. It's the wandering souls in the hyperspace. Li Mingze suddenly thought of the lost fleet that his fleet encountered several years ago. It should be that the pilgrims opened a hole in the box while affecting Yang Shai's soul. When the experimental ship passed through the hyperspace, these lost souls entered Yang Shai's body through the hole. Damn it, Li Mingze slammed his fist, and it made sense now. Your Majesty, look, another scientist pointed at the screen and shouted. Everyone focused their attention on the monitor, and saw Yang Shai, who had originally grown bone spurs, lying on the ground, and the purple tissue extending from his body had eroded into the floor. Quick! Let the experimental ship fly into the star, Li Mingze shouted anxiously. The staff responsible for controlling the experimental ship hurriedly pressed the button on the control panel in front of him. The thrusters at the tail of the experimental ship sprayed out flames and rushed towards the star, but as Yang Shai's body in the experimental ship completely turned into purple matter, the area covered by these purple substances became larger and larger, and extended to more and more cabins. The monitor in the laboratory suddenly turned into a snowflake. Your Majesty, we have lost contact with the test ship. The staff member in charge of controlling the test ship turned around in frustration. Quickly mobilize the detectors of this galaxy to detect this area. I want to know the movement of this test ship. Li Mingze's tone was a little flustered. Now there is a pilgrim civilization and the Davis Security Council in the star field, which is already chaotic enough. This damn lost hyperspace soul can also mutate. This star field is no longer a place for normal people. We must leave. Because of the support of friends, this week this book has a small recommendation position in the science fiction channel. In order to make the data of this book better and get the subsequent recommendation of Tianyi, I hope everyone will support me by voting for recommendations, monthly tickets and automatic subscriptions. Thank you. Chapter 222, The Anti-Saint, Dandan Danho's fourth update. Your Majesty, the direction of the spaceship's flight has been calculated. Its target is the star field next to the Pilgrim Fleet star field, the staff member said as he enlarged the star map on the screen to the sky. As expected, the spaceship icon representing the anti-saint, let's call it that for the time being, was flying along a line towards the star field next to the Pilgrim star field. The wide line was the calculated hyperspace trajectory. This is the rhythm of a three-way fight. We really can't stay here for long. We might be dragged into it one day. Li Mingze shook his head and walked out of the laboratory. Tianyi, have we completed the transformation of several planets? Li Mingze summoned Tianyi after returning to the office. It will take another month for the shields of the 3 planets to grow, and it will take at least 3 years for the solar arrays and defense arrays in orbit to be completely completed. 80% of the underground projects on the 3 planets have been completed, and the resources mined from various colonies are being stored in them continuously. Tianyi waved his hand and summoned a holographic screen to explain. We will set off when the solar array is half completed, and start transferring civilians and equipment 2 months later. Li Mingze turned his pen and thought. As you command, Your Majesty. Tianyi's figure disappeared into the air, dividing line. 500 light-years away from the Pilgrim civilization, a spaceship painted in American colors suddenly appeared in the starry sky. Finally escaped from the clutches of the Sith Empire, Eva sighed and drove the spaceship towards an asteroid belt near the nearest gray planet. Damn Earthlings, damn Sith Empire, I will go back for revenge sooner or later. I will keep you all in cages, starve you every day, and make you beg me. Ha ha ha, Eva thought as she moved closer to the nearest asteroid. Start the mining drone. A drone the size of a fighter jet detached from the spaceship and moved closer to the asteroid next to the spaceship. As several electric drills extended from the drone's head and drilled into the asteroid, a large amount of asteroid debris flew out of the drilled holes and was sucked into the cabin by the suction nozzle on the drone. After the drone's cargo hold was full, it returned to the spacecraft. A large amount of mineral debris was sent to the refining equipment in the spacecraft through the transmission pipe. The refined alloy was then sent to the manufacturing module of the spacecraft. Finally, with the joint efforts of several metal printers, a new mining drone gradually took shape. A few hours later, 2 mining drones appeared in the asteroid belt. After the 2 drones sent the minerals back to the spacecraft, a new refining equipment began to be built on the outside of the spacecraft. One by one, the parts were grabbed by the mechanical arm and placed on the equipment being formed. After the refining equipment was manufactured, the minerals brought back by the drone were made into new manufacturing equipment and connected to the outer shell of the spacecraft. With the installation of the 2 new equipment, the manufacturing capacity of the entire spacecraft doubled. As time passed, Eva continued to use the resources she obtained to build production modules. As the number of modules increased, the size of the entire spacecraft became larger and larger. Until the keel of the spacecraft could no longer bear such a heavy weight, it stopped expanding, and the keel of a new spacecraft began to be laid. Time flies, and a month has passed. The spaceships controlled by Eva have increased from 1 to 10. The 10 bloated spaceships are followed by 50 rough-shaped drones. After discovering that the original design that pursued appearance had some impact on efficiency, Eva changed the design drawings of all spaceships and aircraft. Today's unmanned aircraft and spaceships have completely abandoned aesthetics. The rough appearance makes full use of every space in the spaceship. Next, I need a base. Eva thought for a moment and made a decision. She chose to settle on the spot between continuing to build spaceships for long-distance travel and settling on the spot. However, she did not know that this decision would allow her to meet the pilgrims early in the near future. If she chose to travel far, she would probably escape this disaster. In just a few days, the prototype of a space station transformed from an asteroid appeared in the asteroid belt, marking the beginning of Eva's road to conquering the universe. No one knows Eva's current situation. Even the exploration ships spread out by the Pilgrim civilization have not found any traces of Eva, an artificial intelligence life, and the natural wormhole that Eva passed through has long disappeared. Unlike Eva, the anti-saint who controlled the experimental ship to enter the hyperspace came to the galaxy where Davis' expeditionary fleet was ambushed. The Pilgrim ships that had been ambushed here had all left, leaving behind countless warship wreckages, the largest of which were the huge pieces of mothership wreckage that were blown apart by the Pilgrim mothership. Abundant food, the experimental ship that had been transformed into the anti-saint sent out an unknown hyperspace communication message. The experimental ship quickly pounced on the wreckage of a frigate. The experimental ship that pounced on the wreckage melted like snow, and the purple unknown organization penetrated through the cracks in the wreckage. Soon, the entire wreckage of the frigate seemed to come alive. Dozens of tiny purple tentacles stretched out from the wreckage of the spacecraft and stretched out to the surrounding debris. Soon, the wreckage of several frigates was pulled together by the tentacles. Countless purple biological tissues wrapped the wreckage. A few minutes later, a complete frigate sailed out of the sphere composed of purple tissues, but the color of the warship completely turned purple. After restoring the warship, the huge purple ball floated towards the other wreckage around it, and brand new purple frigates continued to appear in the wreckage. In less than 2 days, a large number of frigate wreckages had been assimilated into brand new warships by the anti-saint. The anti-saint, which had swallowed a lot of metal, expanded several times. After expanding to the point where it could easily swallow a destroyer, the huge purple sphere floated towards the wreckage of the destroyer among the many wreckages. A few days later, except for the huge mothership fragments and hundreds of cruiser wreckages in space, the wreckage of other spacecraft had disappeared, and there was only a brand new lost fleet quietly floating in the universe. Not enough. Not enough food. The huge purple sphere roared and floated towards the wreckage of the cruiser destroyed by the Davis Security Council. The wreckage of the Davis Security Council cruiser also failed to escape the clutches of the anti-saint and was swallowed by the purple giant ball. Chapter 223, Void Merchants, Dandan Danho 5th Update. As the purple sphere devoured the wreckage of Davis Council's cruiser, one cruiser after another appeared in the lost fleet. After assimilating the wreckage of Davis Council's cruiser, the anti-saint was still not satisfied and drifted towards the wreckage of the Pilgrim's mothership in the distance. However, this time the size of the anti-saint was far less than that of the fragment. The anti-saint could only start from a small corner of the fragment, and it was estimated that it would take several months to assimilate the entire fragment. At this time, in the territory of the Sith Empire, the Empire, which had completed the construction of shields for 3 planets, had begun preparations. All the materials and equipment that the colonies could take away had been dismantled, and one after another transport ships loaded with equipment and materials from various colonies flew to Earth and the new home planet. The duty of New Star was different from that of Earth and the new home planet, which were used to carry the citizens of the Empire. New Star had been transformed into a huge dock and military base. After completing the final construction task, all the shipyards in the Empire were pulled into the slots built to New Star. Thanks to the low gravity of the smaller New Star, even frigates built on New Star without anti-gravity engines can take off easily. The underground of New Star was also completely hollowed out. All military bases and military academies in the Empire were moved here. 4 closed ports that can accommodate a large fleet were dug out deep underground. In addition, the atmosphere of New Star was also emptied, and a grid-like magnetic energy track was laid on the ground of New Star. Like the solar arrays that will be built on Earth and New Homestar, New Star will also install a movable solar array with an area of 1/3 to cooperate with a huge solar cell ring on its equator to power many manufacturing equipment and buildings on New Star. Thanks to the small size of New Star, her surface area is also much smaller than that of Earth and New Homestar, which makes the construction completion of its solar array far exceed that of Earth and New Homestar. Hexagonal all-black solar panels are attached to the ground, and there is a hexagonal shield generator in the middle of tens of thousands of movable solar panels. In addition to the solar array and planetary shield generator, New Star is also equipped with defense modules similar to those on Earth and New Homestar. The movable hexagonal fortress can be flexibly deployed on the surface of the planet, and its special shape can be perfectly integrated with the solar array and shield generator. If you look down from space at the transformed Nuwa star, you can see that the originally gray surface of the planet has now become a black metal ground composed of a hexagonal honeycomb structure. The borders of the black hexagons are also emitting blue lighting, which makes the entire Nuwa star full of science fiction. In addition, you can also see the 4 huge port gates of Nuwa star at the poles and the equator. Because the port gates are also laid with magnetic energy tracks, there is no effect on the movement of solar panel modules and self-defense modules. In the orbit of Nuwa star, there is a huge ring of solar panels, and the ring is densely distributed with beam cannons. Now the entire Nuwa star has become a huge fortress planet, with countless fortress cannons all over the surface of the planet, and it can also carry all the fleets of the Empire. Unfortunately, the Empire's technology is still too backward. Not to mention that the main energy on this planet comes from solar energy. The self-provided reactor only provides energy for combat and emergency energy. If the Empire's technological level can be further improved, the Empire can not only save the solar array that occupies a large amount of space outside the planet, but also completely transform the entire planet, so that the planet's carrying capacity and defense capabilities are greatly improved. With the completion of the shields of Nuwa star, Earth and the new home planet, the day for the Empire to migrate is getting closer and closer. In the blue bricks of Sith Star, Mingze and a group of officers are discussing the progress of the recent migration operation. Your Majesty, a huge spaceship has just appeared in our galaxy, but the other party has not carried out any hostile behavior and has applied to communicate with the supreme leader of our empire. Tianyi's voice rang in Mingze's ears. The meeting is over. I have something urgent to deal with. After Mingze finished speaking, he stood up and left a bunch of officers staring at each other and walked out of the meeting room. Tell me, what's going on? Mingze came to the empty office and said to Tianyi. A huge spaceship with a volume of about 10,000 kilometers has just appeared in our new home star system. As he spoke, a holographic projection of a huge spaceship appeared in front of Mingze. This spaceship looks like a huge U-shaped spaceship, with a huge U-shaped turn at the stern and 2 huge parallel hulls. The whole spaceship exudes a golden light. After receiving their communication, Mingze sat on his desk and straightened his collar. Hello, Master of the Sith Empire. We are the great void merchant Feng and Spike. We can sell you anything you want. A wretched creature with an elephant nose face appeared in front of the desk. Are you willing to sell anything? What can I buy it with? Mingze asked calmly with a thought in his heart. That's right. We, the void merchants, have been in this business for 20,000 years. We should have everything you want. As for what to buy, of course, we use energy coins condensed from energy, or barter. Feng and Spike rubbed his paws obscenely. We don't have enough energy coins ourselves, so let's barter. Mingze suddenly thought of something and smiled slyly in his heart. Okay, whatever you are willing to bring out, we will give you a list of things that can be exchanged based on the materials you provide. The 2 little eyes of the void merchant Feng and Spike narrowed together. So, what can 59 life planets and 63 mineral planets, plus a large star field containing them, exchange for? Mingze placed his hands on the table. This is a little too little. Although Feng and Spike was extremely excited, he still pretended to be disgusted. If you think it's too little, forget it. Mingze stretched out his hand and pretended to turn off the communication. Okay, although it's not much, it can still be exchanged for something. Feng and Spike looked like he had made a fortune and drew a list to Mingze. Look, I'll give you 200 points, you can choose it yourself, and I won't change the extra points. Feng and Spike said nothing more. 20 points for the Dreadnought blueprint, 100 points for the Dyson Sphere blueprint, 40 points for the intermediate hyperspace engine, 30 points for the intermediate fusion reactor, 50 points for the mass acceleration cannon, 30 points for the planetary fortress blueprint, 60 points for an ancient civilization battleship, 50 points for the new genetic optimization technology, and 30 points for the hyperspace radar blueprint. Mingze couldn't help but feel his heart beating faster as he read the list of item names on the screen. Thanks to all the friends who subscribed, rewarded, voted for monthly tickets, and recommended tickets. The author would like to thank you all for your strong support. Your support is my greatest motivation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224, The Expanded Davis Council. Even if we get the blueprints of the Dyson sphere, we can't build it. It's better to study it slowly by ourselves. The most urgent task now is to enhance the hard power of the Empire's fleet. According to the description, the mass accelerator cannon is several times more powerful than the Empire's current weapons, and the intermediate fusion reactor can provide sufficient energy for this mass accelerator cannon, and can also upgrade the power station on the planet. Hyperspace radar can make the Empire's planetary fleet safer, increase the alert range of the Empire's fleet, and detect approaching enemies in time. The new gene optimization technology can greatly extend human life again, reaching an astonishing 600 years. As for the blueprints of the ancient battleship and the dreadnought, they are useless. The current Empire cannot build a dreadnought, and adding this ancient battleship will not be of much help, so it is better to improve its own technology to be perfect. Li Mingze touched his chin and pondered. I want intermediate hyperspace engine, intermediate fusion reactor, mass accelerator cannon, hyperspace radar and gene optimization technology. Li Mingze made up his mind. Oh? Are you sure? Feng and Spike asked, rubbing his paws to confirm. I'm sure. Li Mingze nodded affirmatively. He was actually very happy in his heart. He didn't expect that he could exchange the unwanted planet for so many things before running away. No problem, I will send drones to inspect the goods. If the goods are as you said, then the deal can be established. Feng and Spike also nodded. Hundreds of small disc-shaped drones flew out of the Void Merchant spaceship and jumped into the hyperspace. Li Mingze looked at these drones that entered and exited the hyperspace at will with some envy. These drones were at least equipped with advanced hyperspace engines. If he could shoot down one of them, he would be excited just thinking about it. No, there is such a big spaceship lying across the way. I can't commit suicide. Li Mingze hurriedly shook his head to drive the fantasy out of his brain. A few hours later, hundreds of drones reappeared next to the Void Merchant spaceship. Li Mingze was shocked. So fast. You know, his spaceship takes half a month to fly in his own star field, and this is still using the transportation hub composed of hyperspace traps to save time flying in the galaxy. The so-called hyperspace hub is to install hyperspace trap generators in several main flight directions of the galaxy, and then the spacecraft between the galaxies wait for the hyperspace trap in the galaxy they want to reach to open, like waiting for a red light. When the hyperspace trap is opened, the spacecraft is directly at the end of the galaxy to continue the jump, saving the time of flying within the galaxy. Very good, except that the ecological environment of these planets has deteriorated a little. Everything is fine, and we can reach this transaction. Feng and Spike looked at the data sent back by the drone and nodded with satisfaction. Ecological environment deterioration and destructive mining are not problems for the Void Merchants, who have advanced planet transformation technology and mining technology. Come on, this is the information you want. By the way, I will also give you a drone with the hyperspace engine removed. Its shield is a good thing. Feng and Spike looked like he was looking at me. You are making a fortune. But in fact, he was almost happy to death. A bunch of technologies that he had sold countless times and stored for thousands of years actually exchanged for hundreds of star systems and a bunch of life planets. Li Mingze, who sent out a spacecraft to receive the drone, was also very happy. This bunch of star systems that were about to become occupied areas were exchanged for technology that could greatly increase the strength of the Empire. This profiteer should just wait to be cheated to death. Ha ha ha. The two people who thought they had made a big profit shook hands happily through the holographic projection. We still need about a month to migrate the materials on these planets. How about you wait for another month? Li Mingze said to Feng and Spike. No problem. Feng and Spike have lived for nearly 10,000 years. I can still wait for such a little time. Feng and Spike shook his head indifferently. That's good. Li Mingze smiled, but in fact he was still thinking about what he could pull back. A month passed, and the fleet of the Davis Security Council returned to the Solar System defense line. At this time, the atmosphere in the Davis Security Council fortress was a bit dull, and a group of military leaders sat together. The warships of the Pilgrim civilization have evolved. We can't continue to be at ease. We must expand our territory and improve our material reserves to increase the number of fleets. Time waits for no one. We must race against time to arm ourselves. We must not let the Pilgrim civilization continue to expand, otherwise it will be a crisis for the entire galaxy. A Security Council member slammed his fist on the table and said viciously, but unfortunately, because it was a holographic projection, there was no sound. What about those low-level civilizations? They are around our star field. If we expand, we will definitely not be able to jump over them. Another Security Council member shook his head. What's the use of those low-level civilizations? The spacecraft built with so many materials can't even withstand 2 rounds of salvos from the opponent's frigates. If those resources are given to us, the fleet we can build will be far stronger than theirs in both quantity and quality, the first Security Council member who spoke said viciously. I support this point. Why don't we temporarily annex those low-level civilizations to increase our war potential so that we can equip more warships? Another Security Council member said that he agreed with the first person's statement. Since we have annexed these low-level civilizations, the primitive civilizations we are protecting. You should know that these planets also have rich resources, a council member suddenly spoke up, and the entire conference room fell into an awkward silence. This is the belief we have always adhered to. A council member was a little speechless. We are only taking over them temporarily. After the crisis of the pilgrims is resolved, we will naturally return them a quiet world. Everything is for the current crisis. If the pilgrims are not resolved, then they will inevitably be assimilated by the pilgrims. The first director who spoke shook his head. Okay, I agree too. The directors in the conference room raised their hands to express their agreement. A few days later, a notice requiring each civilization to disband its fleet and government and hand over all planets and star systems to the Davis Security Council for management was issued to each country. Now the Andal military group and other 3 countries were panicked. They agreed to resist the attack of the Pilgrim civilization together, but how could they be annexed by you? Chapter 225, Departure, Targeting the Center of the Milky Way. Unlike the other 3 countries, the current empire disdains this notice, because after a month of transition, all materials, empire citizens, and slaves have been completely transferred. The 32 billion Sith citizens are 12 billion on Sith, 9.8 billion on Earth, 9.8 billion on New Home, and 400 million on Nuwa, military, engineers, scientists, etc. Up to 10 billion slaves and auxiliary troops are evenly distributed in the underground cities on Earth and New Home. The minerals, equipment, food, water and other materials in the entire empire have been completely moved. Now there are countless freshwater lakes on Earth and Sith, and the underground warehouses are filled with food, minerals, and equipment. Using the intermediate hyperspace engine technology obtained from Von Spike, after a month of intense upgrades, the hyperspace engines on the 4 planets have all been upgraded to intermediate hyperspace engines. These engines can already ignore most of the planet's gravity wells, which means that the spacecraft can jump into hyperspace at a closer distance to the planet. Not only that, these engines greatly shorten the cooling and energy storage time, and even increase the speed of the spacecraft in hyperspace. After receiving the notice from Davis Security Council, Mingze decided not to wait for the weapons upgrades of several planets to be completed, and to start sailing in 15 days. With a violent hyperspace fluctuation, the long-prepared New Home planet, New Way planet, Earth, and Sith planet appeared in the border galaxy of the Empire Star region with flashes. New Way planet, Earth, and New Home planet, the 3 planets that rely on solar energy storage, will be charged for the last time through the stars in this star system. After the 15-day charging period, this fleet consisting of 4 planets, 3 large and 1 small, will fly to the distant center of the Milky Way. Unlike planets such as the Earth, Sith planet uses the original geocentric energy extraction device to supply energy to the jump engine. Unlike opening a wormhole, such a hyperspace jump from one galaxy to another will cause minimal damage to the Earth's core. If there is enough recovery time, Sith planet can even jump indefinitely. However, Earth and New Home planet are not good because they are huge in size and require too much energy. The solar array, which is only half completed, can only provide them with energy for 2 jumps after a month of solar energy charging. On Nuwa Star, where the solar array has been completed, it only takes 10 days to complete the charging of 2 jumps. Solar array starts, as the heads of the hyperspace jump departments on the 3 planets gave orders at the same time. The huge solar arrays on the surfaces of the 3 planets suspended next to the galaxy's stars began to move slowly. Countless hexagonal solar array modules with a diameter of tens of kilometers slowly moved along the magnetic energy track buried on the planetary shield toward the side facing the star. Because the three planets are at a moderate distance from the Sun, the planetary shield modules do not suffer too much heat radiation damage, and the solar arrays can receive strong sunlight, providing huge energy for the planets. The solar array is operating normally, the energy acquisition rate is gradually increasing, the staff shouted as they watched the solar array modules moving toward the star. Very good. Let's wait quietly for the arrival of the departure day in 15 days, the person in charge nodded with satisfaction. 10 days later. The fleet of the Davis Security Council has begun to disperse and fly towards dozens of countries around it. These countries have all received the annexation information sent by the Davis Security Council without exception. Some civilizations chose to disarm on the spot, disband the government, and surrender to the Davis Security Council. Some civilizations wanted to try to resist, but without exception, they were all wiped out by the fleet of the Davis Security Council as easily as autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. The rapidly advancing Davis fleet soon arrived in the territory of the Sith Empire. Sir, the Sith Empire has not expressed its consent to annexation, nor has it expressed its intention to resist. What exactly do they mean? An officer in the bridge of the Davis annexation fleet flagship said curiously. I don't know, but I always feel something is wrong. The commander of the annexation fleet touched his chin. Sir, the administrative star in front of us is the border of the Sith Empire, recorded in the middle. An officer pointed to a green planet on the screen and said, Let's go. After several hours, the flagship bridge fell into silence. Where are the people? Where are the people from the Sith Empire? The commander asked loudly, looking at the empty city on the screen. I don't know. We didn't find any electromagnetic signals on this planet. Maybe this planet has been abandoned. The officer shook his head. Why would they abandon this planet of life? From the pictures, there are no signs of war or disaster here. Even the streets are clean as if they have just been cleaned. The commander felt that he could no longer guess the brain circuits of the Sith Empire. Continue, let's go to the next star system. After thinking for a moment, the commander decided to continue walking in and take a look. A few days later, a new Imperial administrative system recorded in the Security Council archives. The annexation fleet quietly hovered over a blue planet. Still no one. The officer was a little overwhelmed. There are still no signs of disaster or war. Let's keep looking. I don't believe that the Sith people can disappear from the universe. The commander gritted his teeth fiercely. The annexation fleet flew over one star system after another, and still did not find any signs of the Sith Empire in these star systems, not even a Sith Empire spaceship. Just as the Davis Security Council fleet was confused and running around, the three planets of the Empire had completed the charging of the hyperspace engine. Today is a great day for us humans. Today, our Sith Empire will march towards the vast universe. We are not escaping, we are looking for a new home. The boundless starry sky is waiting for us, I declare. The Empire migration plan has begun. All the screens on Earth, Sith Star, New Home Star, and New Wa Star showed the figure of Li Mingze in black and gold armor. Long live the Empire! Li Mingze raised his right hand. Long live the Empire! At this moment, all the citizens of the Empire who were watching the migration ceremony in front of the screen stood up excitedly, raised their arms and shouted. Start the jump device. Universe, our Sith Empire is here, Li Mingze shouted. After receiving Li Mingze's order, blue shields slowly rose on the four planets and disappeared into the starry sky under the dazzling light. This remote galaxy on the border fell into silence again. There was no Sith in the entire star field of the Empire, only tens of billions of alien slaves who were abandoned. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.